validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
All right, how you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. Today, we're going to be unlocking the compounding habits for money growth. Before we get started, Steven said this is going to be the last day for me working overtime and listening to the podcast on the weekends. After today, I will have my feet up on the weekends when I tune in. Yeah, it's about time for college to start. It's about time for regular school to start. So I know you said you was going to go from working a bunch of jobs to down to just a regular 40-hour week schedule. So I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear that transition. I'd be glad to hear even more that you had actually started up a side business that was paying you off the computer so that you could be working while you're in class or getting paid while you're asleep instead of having to show up to a brick and mortar building in order to get your pay. But baby steps, we'll get there. Here on This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, we go live 7 nights a week. We do not let the sun rise without going live, but we don't always start on time, and that's why we ask you guys to like and subscribe, smash those reaction buttons while you're here, and then hit the notification button to be notified when we do go live again, as well as double checking our membership to see all of the things that we have in store for you guys, because we release content on pretty much an everyday basis. So you guys would really benefit from all of the extra content that we have going into the membership on a regular basis for you guys. in addition to the topics that we cover on a day-to-day basis. Now, we haven't had media updates, but I will be putting up a Monday show between tonight and tomorrow so that it's ready for tomorrow. So you have to sometime after tomorrow night's show hit that notification button for the Monday show to get the notification for the Monday show. Uh, Beyond that, though, we have different topics every night of the week as well. So we have Sundays as questions and comments from the fans. We all have questions. I give you guys information. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we talk about business and politics. Where on Monday, we talk about how politics negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money. We talk about on Tuesdays other ways to make, save, and invest money. Wednesdays, we talk about different countries around the world that you can potentially live and invest in. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, today being Saturday, we talk to you guys about self-improvement, personal development, relationship topics, socialization, negotiations, raises, retirement, promotions, forced retirement, termination, severance packages, and then how to build your 20 and 30-year plan, because one of the most important things in your future is how to get to your future by identifying what future you would like to have. And then also being able to curate the difference between positive in the moment decisions versus negative in the moment decisions, just like we were discussing yesterday with your ability to maintain your cool when you're communicating with people that are being irrational. If you recognize and pause and take that 10 seconds to think about what you're about to do, your next action could effectively change whether or not your future is going to be a certain way. So instead of impulsively saying and doing certain things that would lead to the potential for negative consequences, you want to rethink the position, delay your action and reaction, and then put forth a level of effort in order to make sure that what you're about to do now will positively benefit whatever you have planned for the future. Right now, we're going to go ahead today. We're going to dive right into it because we don't really have a ton of information, but I know that we do have close to an hour's worth of information, maybe an hour and a half. So I appreciate those likes. Make sure y'all mash those reaction buttons because we're about to dive right into it and give you guys the majority of the content that you need. And then we have extra information in the membership on the YouTube side of things. So I know you guys have been told plenty of times to pay yourself first. And I mean, I know Michael preaches pay yourself first on the YouTube side of things on a regular basis. You hear pay yourself first with every investment guru all over the place. And it's a cornerstone of personal finance. I appreciate all the likes, Infi. I really appreciate that. But that's going to be the first rule in everyone's book, except mine. And the one piece of advice that everyone seems to agree on, including me. And why do I say except mine? Because I have an unorthodox way of doing things. While I recognize that paying yourself before you start spending your discretionary funds on something else, I also say pay your primary bills first and then pay yourself second after your primary bills. Now, I could say pay yourself first, but it depends on how much you're planning on paying yourself. Because what have you a $4,000 paycheck, $3,700 lifestyle? Pay yourself $500, some of your bills are not getting paid. Now, what have you, same $4,000 income, $2,300 base cost of living. That's the car insurance, phone bill, gas in the car, rent, light, gas, or the mortgage, insurance policies, stuff to that effect, right? That's before you go to the club, after you come back from the grocery store, before you go to the club, your standard living might be like $2,500 worth of cost. Now, I would say you could take $500 out of the discretionary spending out of the remaining $1,500 before you spend that other $1,000 on something else. In fact, if you had an extra $1,500 to enjoy the pleasures of life, then I would likely say take $1,000 out and pay myself first before I waste money on entertainment, membership subscriptions, gym training, personal trainers, all this other stuff, clubbing, tours with the friends and family members, the all of the things that we do with the money left over, you do that after you pay yourself. And that's why I say, I'm not going to jump into the direct pay yourself first. But if you had the type of capital coming in where you could put your money into the brokerage account, then you would be able to utilize the profits from the brokerage account to start paying for the discretionary spending. Like, for example, if you was putting away $1,000, $2,000 a month, something to that effect, and you was able to draw back upward of $200, $300, $400 a month off of that money and counting. Under those dynamics, then I would say, yeah, put this young kid right here got to go. So put all of that into the account and then think, I'm going to take what I'm getting on a monthly and then I'm going to spend that on my discretionary instead of taking the principal and spending the principal. I start living off of the interest, right? That's when you start doing it the way the billionaires do it. It's like, well, let's put all the money into the accounts. Let's move the money around first. And then after we move the money around, then we'll be in a position to say, okay, let's see how much we have to go have fun with, right? Now I'm going to ask you guys, because I know that we got a lot of individuals on TikTok here, young bloods that like to come in and be inappropriate. We are an adult podcast. We're going to be talking about ways for you guys to make, save, and invest money. So I ask for you guys on the TikTok side of things to be appropriate in the comment section. If you guys are making inappropriate comments, because I read the comments, and if those comments are appropriate, I read them out loud, or when I'm on the YouTube side of things, I put everything on the screen for everybody to see it. If I see the comments are looking inappropriate, some of those inappropriate commenters will have to be removed from the channel. So at Gavin says, just say that you're immature and clearly not old enough to watch. Exactly. Because I've already changed the status to 18 and older, so everybody here should be an adult. But the young kids that be making a profile set up as 18 and older, and they jump in and they want to troll the account, it's like, look, I'm blocking the comment and the person that made the comment. So when the comments come up and they start being inappropriate, I'm gonna be like, yup, you can't even finish watching the show. Now, back to the main topic. I want to be honest with you guys. For most people, the logic of pay yourself first doesn't always work, right? And there's a reason why. Month after month, you might end up with nothing left over to save. Feeling that familiar pang of guilt, like you failed at the most basic rule of money. You guys got to know that if you save and you want to be saving, you know that you should be saving. But by the time that your rent is paid, the groceries are bought, life happens, you're surviving on a savings account that gets the leftover scraps, if anything at all. Right? And that's why I tell you guys, I understand that the big guys, the gurus, the multi-millionaires, the people who already got it made will throw out a left-wing comment and say, pay yourself first. Yeah, if you ain't got no money left over, how the hell are you going to do that? The problem isn't the advice itself, but that the common understanding of this concept is broken. Okay. It's missing the radical mindset shift that's required actually to make it work. This isn't about saving what's left over. This isn't a suggestion. This is instead about re-engineering your financial reality. It's going to be about treating your future self as a sacred, non-negotiable creditor that you are obligated to pay before anyone else, right? After your bills, before bullshit. Think about this. So some people are going to say, well, you should pay yourself before you pay your landlord, pay yourself before you pay your car company, pay yourself before you pay your credit card company. In order for you to make that scenario work, one of the first things you're going to have to do is recalculate how you spend your money, right? And in recalculating how you spend your money, you have to really decide the difference between the things that I need, the things that I want, and the things that I can benefit now that I can wait until later to go get, right? Because if I can benefit from it, I can classify it as a need. But if I don't really need to do that right now, I can benefit from that later when things are more financially in my favor. Let's take, for example, if you got a yard, you need to cut your grass. You don't want to pay a lawn guy because it costs too much money. They don't do a good enough job, right? You want to get your own lawn equipment to cut your own yard. It benefits you now to cut your own lawn because your lawn needs cutting, but it also could benefit you in like a few weeks to get the lawnmower when you have more extra capital to put towards the lawnmower so that you can cut your own grass later. Not to mention it's hot as fuck right now, like 100 degrees literally. So it probably would benefit you when it gets a little bit cooler outside to start trimming some shit up. But the point of the matter is that your life will not go undone today if you don't buy the lawnmower or weed eater this week. So it is not a necessity. It is a preference. It's not a luxury. It's a preference because you need it to get done, but it is not an emergency scenario that needed to get done. And that's going to be something that we have to change. If we change that one mindset out of all of the stuff we're going to be talking about today, if we change that one mindset, certain things that we can benefit from that would qualify as a need, if we put that on the needed later list instead of putting it on the needed now list, we can delay certain things and stretch our spending out so that we can have our discretionary spending be lower. We also have to recognize when you're trying to do things that cost money, like rebuilding a house, rebuilding a car, whatever, the more money you put into it, the faster you get it done, right? Problem is, the more money you put into it, not enough money for you to have left to get stuff done. And when you have like a full rebuild of a 90s model vehicle that you're trying to restore from the ground up just to make it functional, not to trick it out, not to modify it, just to make it fully functional, all the bells and whistles and sensors work, all the tires and brakes and everything work. Sometimes it can take $10, $15, $20,000 to do, right? The problem is not you saying, well, I'm going to take a few $100s at a time out of my paycheck to put on this vehicle. The problem is that you do not have the appropriate budget to cover the $1,500 transmission, $5,000 for the engine rebuild, $6,000 for the drivetrain. You know, we're not even talking about messing with the interior. We're talking about like you might spend another $1,000+ on some sensors that need to be changed out. You know, and you are choosing to tackle this with the extra $1,000 you got in your pocket this month, instead of saying, well, let me break this up and put like $150 a month aside for car repair. And when I get to the $1,000, then I'll put the car in the shop. The difference between the need and the benefit, like I benefit from it, but I don't need it now, kind of thing, right? You can rebuild your house from the ground up, but there are certain things that you don't need to do today. Your house isn't going to burn down tomorrow if you put it off for another few weeks. Certain things you can just let it ride for a little bit longer and then get it done, especially if you own a house, right? That's one of the things you got to think about when you are reducing. And I'm going through this in detail because most of us live at like 90-95% of our income. In order for you to take any type of financial advice or recommendations or strategies to say that you're going to put away 20 or 30% of your income into a location where you don't mess with it anymore and it is utilized to set you up for your future, it requires you to have a cost of living that is less than 70% of your income. And right now it's not that. Okay. Whether or not I go through that part of the show or not today, you would effectively have to trim away what we would call trimming away the fat of your spending by unnecessary subscriptions, anything that's a duplicate. If you guys got YouTube and Netflix and Disney Plus and some other subscription, you're gonna have to turn some of that shit off, because you're only going to be able to watch one thing on your cell phone at a time. And whatever you spend the most time on, that's what you should be keeping. And if Netflix isn't the primary thing that you spend the most time on, you might want to keep your Netflix and your YouTube Premium. But that's like two things that you're going to be dealing with on a daily basis. But a gym membership where you don't go to the gym every day, parking passes when you don't park your car every day, sun passes and you don't drive your car on a regular basis. Like certain things you need to be like, you know what, I'm just gonna put less on that and redirect more somewhere else so that I have more discretionary spending. That's going to be one of the first places that you will find benefit. Then the difference between when you're grocery shopping, you have to buy food, but do you have to buy the name brand? A lot of the times you can buy the Great Value brand. Nobody likes the store-bought brand because of the brand, not because of the quality of the food. But when you try it, you come to find out that a lot of the store-bought stuff is the same taste, the same flavors, the same qualities as the name brand stuff, and you can get it for a few dollars cheaper here and there, which would reduce your food bill, which would increase your discretionary spending bill. You also have certain utility bills like the light bill or the gas bill, where certain things that you use on a regular basis throughout the month that is not necessary to use, you could turn those things off and burn less energy in your house, which would save you money on your revolving utility bills. These are going to be actions where you're not actually suffering. You are changing how you do things so that you have more money left over, so that you can do more stuff. You got some folks that like to take 2-hour showers, 2-hour hot showers, $200 something gas bill. Might want to take like a lukewarm shower for a half hour and cut that shit out. If you got a gym membership, why are you taking 2-hour showers at the house when you could be taking a 2-hour shower at the gym? Since you're paying $25 a month at the gym and the gym's got a shower, why not take that 2-hour shower at the gym and save money on your utility bills at the house? That would make the gym membership make more sense, right? Instead of having an extra $100 spike or $150 spike on your utility bills, especially right now because it's hot, gas is going up, and you're sitting over here burning 15, 20 gallons at a time just to take a hot shower. Enough to have a heat stroke, might I add. Steven says, I like me some good, Great Value brands. So that's just some of the tidbits, guys. Because yeah, you can get you the cheaper insurance policy some of the times, but they don't always have the same coverage. You can get you a cheaper phone plan, but that requires you to start over, and they don't have the same coverage. You can not upgrade your phone until they tell you that your phone is no longer receiving updates, instead of updating your phone every year just to have the latest model. That saves you like $1,500 a year. There's certain things that you can do on your basic standard of living expenses that could reduce your expenses down to about 60%. And when you find your expenses down to about 60%, then you might find yourself in a situation where you are able to put more of your discretionary funds towards other things. So I want you guys to stick with me tonight, because I'm going to be dismantling the old failed model of paying yourself first, and then give you a new ideology, a belief system that transforms this tired phrase into the most powerful wealth building tool that you guys will ever need. Okay. So the entire system of personal finance is built on psychological blind spots. We think of ourselves as one person moving linearly through time. The truth is far stranger and far more powerful. From a psychological perspective, the person that you will be in 10 years, 20 years, or even 30 years is almost a stranger to you. Let's think about that for the most part. This isn't just a metaphor. Neuroscientists like Hal Hershfield at UCLA have run fascinating studies using fMRI scans. When people think about their present selves, a specific part of the brain lights up. But when people think or asked to think about their future selves, the brain activity can look surprisingly similar to the pattern seen when thinking about a stranger. You don't know who you're going to be when you grow up or who you're going to be when you get old. And I say it like that because some of y'all are 26 and 30 years old and y'all ass ain't grown up yet. Damn it. This neurological gap helps explain so much of our self-sabotaging financial behavior, which plays deeply into everything that I was talking about yesterday with your self-sabotaging behavior when you misbehave and miscarry yourself in public now in 2026, where those decisions go viral. And in 2028 or 2032, you're not going to be able to get the right jobs, the right meetings, closing the right deals, picking up the right clients because they Googled you and they don't like you from the videos and photos that they found on you from the internet. It's not the way things used to be back in 1996. Back in 1996, 5 kids could get together and start up a fight club at the local park, go bike riding a week later. Nobody would know about the fight club. In 2026, 5 kids get together and start up a fight club. You got 5 or 7 different channels hosting that fight club from 13 different angles, video editors. They put it up online. And then guess what? If these children ever end up in a scenario where they get attacked, they're going to be misperceived as the aggressor. Why? Because you've got a bunch of videos of you guys just fighting for no reason. How can you say self-defense? You guys are fighting on a regular basis for no reason. You have to set an image of your future self today. You also have to make decisions today for your future self so that when you become that future you are prepared for it. And I know that a lot of people tell you, fake it till you make it, dress the part. Dress the part is going to mean that if your plan is to go work in an office building, you don't want to dress like a thug. You want to dress like an office worker. Even if you don't have the job, you want to dress like an office worker. Why do you want to dress like an office worker when you don't have the job of an office worker? Because an office worker is not going to hire you if you don't look like an office worker. That's where dress the part comes from, right? Fake it till you make it is supposed to tell you to have confidence in yourself to do the areas of your job that you currently don't know how to do until you learn how to do them. That's what fake it till you make it means. It doesn't mean to be a fucking phony where you have over embellished your resume just to get this job. You're trying to get a job working next to Elon Musk when you can barely follow instructions flipping burgers at a McDonald's, and then you're going to get in there not knowing what you're doing, and you're going to pretend like you know exactly what this man be talking about when he be talking to you. That's not what fake it till you make it means. Fake it till you make it means that if you was, let's say, trying to be a professor in a 4-year institution, you don't really know what this is going to require from you, but you walk into that classroom every day with a plan, and you walk in there with the confidence that you've been doing this for 20 years, even though you haven't. That's what fake it till you make it means. You're going to learn as you go, because most jobs have a 90-day training period where they're going to show you the stuff that is behind the scenes, trade secrets that nobody knows. So you're not going to go in there with no experience in the field pretending like you know how to use their equipment when you've never seen their equipment before in your life. But having the confidence of knowing that even though I've never seen this equipment before in my life, I know that I can pick up how to use this equipment by the end of today. So by tomorrow, I should know what I'm doing. Where by the end of this week, you don't even need to be standing here watching me do it. 90-day period, give me 72 hours. That's what fake it till you make it is supposed to mean. Is that I can catch on quick and you won't even know that I didn't know what I was doing. Right? I'm self-trainable, right? Baptismal by fire type behavior, right? That's what fake it till you make it means. So we're going to break down a lot of these concepts. So why do we rack up credit card debt for a fleeting pleasure today? That's a very interesting question. And then why do we put off saving for retirement in our younger ages? Because in a way, our brain processes it not as a problem for us, but as a problem for some other person down the road. Just like the United States government, we kick our problems down the road. We do not deal with a lot of the stuff on a day-to-day basis that needs to be dealt with. We ignore it. We play video games. We watch movies. We hang out with friends. We doom scroll social media and ignore the stuff that we're supposed to be doing right now while we're listening to me on a podcast because we got the time to do it. Not Steven. Steven's working right now. He's multitasking. But everybody else is doom scrolling, and I'm popping up on their For You page, and they're like, oh, snap. This guy's live. Steven says, in my 20s, every extra dollar had a purpose, and that was to go to the weed man and liquor store. And truth be told, Steven, in my 20s, it was the same thing. I didn't go to the weed man, though. And one of the reasons why I didn't go to the weed man was because I had 5 weed men that needed somebody to smoke with them. So all I had to do was bring the booze. They would bring the smoke, and we would just put it together like a potluck or get fucked up, and we would do what it got to do. But that was back in the day when I was young and dumb, and then I learned better. After one of my homeboys got 3 DUIs, I was like, yeah, I'm probably gonna have to stop messing with these cats. After one of my homeboys got his drug charge, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna have to mess with these cats. You know, when their future started to look unacceptable to my standards, that's when I started changing. Between 25 and 29, I started changing. Then I went to college, made something out of myself. So just like what you're doing right now, Steven, in your 30s, started going to college at 27 and got out of college at like 38. And here I am, 41, with a whole higher level of knowledge. Nothing applicable in my work field from college, but the skill set to be able to do extensive research and then use that information from research to apply to real world activities that I can benefit from now. So I did benefit from going to college, but college did not make my career. College is just, it gave me the accreditations where if somebody was to come and ask me on a podcast today, oh, well, what degrees do you have to talk about this? You know, microbiology, communication and health, and computer technology. But is any of those degrees business and finance? No. Most of those degrees are in medicine, you know, but the fact is that I've got 3 degrees. That's enough to say, well, this dude's smart enough that I could listen to him for another 20 minutes and see what he's got to say. And if he's still making sense in 20 minutes, I'll hang out for another 20 minutes, right? FX Trader says, I believe the education system could have taught this planning in high school. If the students did not follow the plan, then it's their mistake. I believe that if parents taught their children, because I covered this on the show many moons ago, that if parents started teaching their children this at 5, 6, 7, and 8 years old, by the time the kids got to school at 7, 8, 9 years old, in elementary school, first grade, whatever, the kids would know how to manage their own money to pay for their own school lunch. The kids would know how to manage their money to pay for their school field trips, to cover their school supplies, to pay for their prom. They would know how to budget their money, because think about this. Like, I always get on those parents that wasted all that money for prom. If you teach your child about, and this is one of those things that we never think about, the consequences of your actions. Consequences of your actions is usually taught as you do something wrong and you will get in trouble for it. But consequences of your actions is typically the fallout of a decision that you made back in the past. And it could be a positive consequence. For example, if your kid was putting away $1 a week or $1 per month for the entirety of their school's education system, from the first grade to the 10th or 11th grade, you understand that they will be putting away like $365 a year for prom for 12 years. Think about that. Think about that. Just putting away, just having your kid put away $30 a month on average for prom. They don't even know what prom is. Let me show you some videos of prom. Let me show you what it's like, the biggest thing that kids want to do for prom, right? But if you taught your kid from before they got into school long-term consequences for short-term decision making, which allows you to prepare for your future, by the time that child's prom come up, that child's prom account would likely have $4,000 or $5,000 in it that the child made themselves. I don't got to give you nothing for prom. You can pay for your own prom. You can get your limo, you can get your outfit, you can reserve a venue, whatever it is that you wanted to do, because I taught you how to prepare for your future, right? That's what parents don't do. Now, if we take that skill set and then we were to donate to public schools, because public schools are nonprofit organizations that are government funded organizations, which means that it's a 100% tax deduction, right? So dollar for dollar, what you give to the school, you can write it off on what you give to Uncle Sam. So Donald Trump's not spending that money on war because you gave it to your local school. Then when you put your kid in that school, the teachers treat your kids better, but they now have a larger budget to have certain teachers put in place specifically to teach your kids how to take that knowledge and take it one step further, right? Then the kids would learn economics in a fashion where they're learning how to make, save, and invest money in middle school, in high school. So instead of them thinking about branding, they're thinking about investments. They're thinking about the value of things. And all of that leads to what we're talking about today is how do you do it correctly if you don't know what to do? So it takes a core upbringing to make this easier, but it takes a massive mind shift, and it's easier to have that massive mind shift as an adult at 30 years old. Special shout out to OG Kicks. It is easier to have that mindset shift as an adult. And the reason why it is because you've already spent from 18 to 35 getting your ass kicked by society. And now that you are pissed off at how life sucks, you want to change. You are willing to take any advice from anywhere else to start making that change. And when you start getting advice from this and that, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, and that advice actually starts working for you, that's when you start changing for the better. But the whole time you didn't care about change, the whole time that you were just winging it, the whole time you're in a situation where it doesn't matter if the advice is good or not, because my present is all right. But when your future comes and your present starts to suck because you wasn't preparing for your future, that's when you start saying, I want out of this. Well, you got to dig yourself out, my man. Trader says, but how do you convince the kids to put their money into a brokerage account instead of buying Jordan sneakers? Like I said, you got to start 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. If you're dealing with a 14 or 15-year-old where you've been giving them money for no reason, just because they breathe, and you haven't taught them how to budget that money, you just let them figure it out, they're going to waste it impulsively and not have any money left over. Then they're going to whine and cry and beg you for more money, and you're going to want to make them get out of your face. You'll get it to them. You'll cash app them some money. But truth be told, if you start teaching your kid, and it's not hopeless. If you're coming to the show and you got teenagers, it's not hopeless. They're smart enough. If you treat them like they're smart enough, they're smart enough to know how to budget and value money. But one of the consequences you're going to have to show them is that, look, if you take this money and put it over here, it will be there when you need it. So say, like, for example, kids that want a new car, they know that the car is expensive. They know that they can't afford to buy it themselves. If you tell them, we're going to save for your car, they will cooperate with that, right? As far as not spending the money that's supposed to be saved, they will cooperate with that. If, like, the girls are more importantly than the boys. If you tell them, well, prom is going to be one of the most important things that you're going to want to do. If we're saving for your prom, they're going to cooperate with that because they're going to get the money that you're saving for them. And it's not because they're savvy to be able to say, oh, I'm going to learn something. I want to learn something. It's like, no, they're going to give me a lump sum of cash if I do what they say. And since the children are already conditioned to chase the money and do whatever it takes to get the money, they're willing to do whatever you tell them to do within reason to get the money. And since it's going to be a lump sum of money just to sit there, shut up, and listen to what they're being told so that they can get the money later and do whatever they want with it, they're not even really going to argue about the scenario. But see, when you start teaching the kids the consequences of their actions, because I'm not giving you an allowance, you're going to have to work, and doing chores around the house is not going to give you any money. You're going to have to work, or you're going to have to invest in family some kind of way where the family is going to benefit financially from your efforts. And that's where your money's going to come from. Or if I'm going to put money towards the savings of, like, your car or your education or your prom or whatever, and that account in your name, and I'm going to build this brokerage account and teach you what's going on, show you how to do taxes, everything to that effect. Investment in you, which you're going to have to return on investment to me. So there's going to be a contract there. If you take the money and go somewhere else with it, you don't have prom. Oh, mom, I want to go to prom. Dad, I want to go to prom. Use your prom money. I spent it. So you don't go to prom. And they can whine and cry and everything that they want to do, but it's like, look, if you spent the money that was dedicated to your prom, you don't have a prom. If you spent the money that was dedicated to your first car, you don't have a first car. If the first car was supposed to come for prom so that you could drive yourself to prom, because usually either the first or second prom, they're right around 16 years old, and you spent the money, you don't get it, right? That's going to be the early stages of learning how to prepare for your future, because that's going to be the same thing that we're going to experience as adults. If we do not put money aside for our future today, in 30 years, if we're still alive, we are not going to have enough money to pay our bills. The 4% increase, which is 0.04, that's like 4 cents on a dollar increase every year, is guaranteed to happen every year. So what would cost you $60,000 a year lifestyle now in 2026 is likely going to require you to have an $80,000 a year lifestyle in 2046. So if you're trying to make it to 2066, you're probably going to need a $90,000 a year income at that time to do then what you're trying to do now, which is struggle to survive. Right? So if you understand that, now you need to start trying to plan, how do I put enough money away to cover the things that I know that I'm going to need by the time I get to that age? That's why you find when I tell you guys about the health savings accounts that are tax advantage, the Roth IRAs, the IRAs, the traditional IRAs, the tax-free IRAs that are tax favored accounts, brokerage accounts. That's the first things I tell you about, is things that'll not only pay you now, but things that'll pay you later, especially if you use some of the stocks that I give you guys in the membership, where it'll generate money. So you don't got to sell your shares in order to get a profit. You just get the dividends. And then you're able to start building the kind of future where your lifestyle no longer sucks. So it might still suck today. It might still suck for the rest of the next 6 months. But at some point, you're going to start seeing a difference because you're changing the way you used to do it instead of just reactionary riding the wave. Steven's been saying, I've been seeing nice gains in the stash account. Man, I've been seeing such sexy returns on my investments. I'm like, Jesus. Especially the two stocks that you have found. I've been taking a lot of the rebalancing from my REITs and putting it on some of the accounts that you have found, that because the real estate investment trust and the BDCs are put in there to give you fast cash today to help you grow your portfolio, but your ultimate retirement plan is going to be on the slower driving cash that's supposed to be producing anywhere between 10% or 3% per share on those tax favored dividend paying growth stocks like Johnson and Johnson and Erie and all of those other stocks that we got in our portfolio. So as we increase our portfolio's principal, we put more and more capital towards the non-REITs and BDCs that will give us growing dividend shares year over year. Because just like I told you the other day when you were looking at like Wendy's, and I showed you the comparison of Wendy's, McDonald's, and Burger King, all this information went into the membership. And I explained to you how, well, McDonald's and Burger King are rising. But if we're looking at dividend distribution, maybe McDonald's, maybe Burger King might be a better choice than Wendy's, because Wendy's is in a restructuring phase right now. So they're going to be slashing dividends. They're going to be, or not distributing dividends, but the other two companies would be producing regularly and potentially showing growth in dividend shares. I told you that one of the best things for you to do is to go and get stocks that are showing a history of dividend growth, not just grabbing a stock because the percentage to the share price is favorable. Yeah, 10, 15, 20% is favorable, but it is not always going to show you immense growth, because we just experienced, because of all the stuff that's happening with the REITs, we just experienced the the slashing of the stock prices for the REITs. All of the REITs got cut in different levels, but they all got cut. But the thing is, though, we're still seeing 22% return on investment. So when they do bounce back, and they will, as soon as we finish going to war with Iran, we will see a different outcome where those REITs will start bouncing back and we'll start seeing a larger return on investment. Trader says maybe people should make it a condition of donating money to the schools, that the school teach financial literacy to their kids. Well, you don't have to give the school $1 to take that exact same idea and go to your local school board and demand that they include in middle school and high school financial literacy. And then if you're going to pay extra money to the school to provide such resource, then it would make a lot of sense. But you don't got to give them $1 to demand that. It's just they would have to put an extra teacher there, or maybe take the math teacher or the sociology teacher and put them on that particular assignment. But if all the parents in that district want their children to be taught financial literacy, then all they got to do is go to the school board meetings and demand that the school board teach the children financial literacy. But you can teach your own child financial literacy, right? And then your child could be a financial consultant teaching other kids financial literacy, taking what he learned and teaching it to everybody else, right? Scratcher says Nike stock is the buy right now. I don't know about that. Usually when people dive into the comment section and throw stuff into the comment section, there's some facts that they're leaving out. If you're interested in buying Nike stock, you need to determine whether or not it's going to just be a growth stock or if it's going to be a dividend paying stock. If it is a dividend paying stock, you need to see what it is, what its P&E, which is profits versus income, uh, uh, or profits versus earnings uh, listing is, and then you want to be able to determine whether or not it has dividend growth year over year for however many years that Nike's been around, and what's your return on investment. Those are going to be some of the fundamental things you're going to be looking at, uh, because Nike is Jordans, and broke folks are buying Jordans like crazy. So, I can't say that they're wrong about Nike stock being a good buy, but um, you got to really look at, you don't want to buy it because it's popular. You want to buy it because it's profitable. You want to make sure that the company makes money and the company has a surplus of money so that they can pay their shareholders. That's what you want to pay attention to. We find ourselves emotionally disconnected from the future person that we will have to deal with in the future, where the consequences of our past decisions becomes our current reality. Saving money doesn't feel like an investment in ourselves. It can feel like giving ourselves a hard-earned cash, or giving our hard-earned cash away to someone that we don't even know. Because putting your money away for the future hurts your bottom line today, because the things that you wanted to buy or the things that you need to buy, you no longer have money to buy because you took that money and put it somewhere else for a what if scenario in 15 or 20 years. And not a lot of people can rationalize that. The conventional advice to pay yourself first often fails because it doesn't address the fundamental disconnect. It asks you to have the willpower to give money basically to a stranger month after month with no immediate reward, because you don't see the reward today. You see the reward in 20 years. You feel that reward today if you're getting the monthly dividend returns on your investment. But if you're not able to spend that money today, it's like looking at a Cadillac on 32s as it rides by. It might be nice to look at, but I can't ride in it. And it ain't for me to use. It's for my future self to use, right? So it's going to be a battle against your own brain's chemistry, and it's going to be a battle where often we're not equipped to win it, especially if money is tight. And this is going to be where the unorthodox ideologies are going to begin. We won't fight the brain. We're just going to hijack it. We're going to reframe the entire relationship that we have with money and our future selves. So from this moment on, you are not saving for your future self. Think of it this way. You are repaying a debt to your future self because you owe it to yourself to have a better future. With all the shit you've been through in the past, you owe it to yourself to have a better future. And your future self needs to receive the return on the investments from past efforts, right? So your future self is the entity loaning you your current life today. And that person, let's call him future you, is the silent investor that is funding your current existence. Future you is the one who will live with the consequences of your health, your career choices, and most critically, your financial decisions. That person is counting on you, the present you, to be a responsible steward of the resources that you both are going to be sharing. So when you fail to save, you're not just being forgetful, because in this particular framework, you're defaulting on the most sacred loan that you'll ever have. You are stealing from the one person whose well-being is intrinsically linked to yours. Future you is your primary creditor. And unlike your mortgage lender or your credit card company, future you is permanent. They are the final arbiter of your life's financial decisions successes and failures. Okay. And this reframe is more than a mental trick. It's an identity shift. You are no longer a hopeful saver in this scenario. You are a debtor with a binding moral obligation to make your payments to yourself. The payments that you make isn't in act of self-deprivation. That's a whole different mindset. We're not putting this money away for self-deprivation. It is an act of integrity. It's the principle that you pay now, which your future you will later receive with the interest of freedom, security, and a plethora of options. Now, this change will change your emotional weight, and all of it is going to start coming off your shoulders. Savings is no longer a weak spot. It's not an optional should I. It becomes a powerful, non-negotiable must. It becomes a bill. And like any critical bill, it gets paid first, or reasonably after the majority of your bills get paid, before you start having party money, right? Not when it's convenient. It's a mandatory, you got to put money away every month, right? Not if there's money left over. You have to mandatorily put money away every month. It's getting paid the moment income arrives. So this is going to be the first law of our new ideology. You are a debtor to your future, and the debt is sacred. So once you've accepted your role as a debtor to your future you, the next layer of the ideology falls right into place, because it's a philosophy that runs directly counter to modern culture. It's the philosophy of stealth wealth, which most broke people don't know anything about. Most broke people, or broke-minded people, spend money to look rich. You buy name brand clothes so that people recognize the clothes that you're wearing. The name brand clothes are expensive. The name brand screams an expensive price tag. And what that tells other broke people is that you have the money to spend on that item. It doesn't mean that you're rich. It means that you had, past tense, the money to spend on that item that you have right now. So if I had a $2,500 suit on right now, I had $2,500 lying around that I apparently did not have any value in to buy that suit. I had $60,000 extra dollars that apparently I did not have anything important to go buy that car, or $120,000 BMW, or whatever G-Wagon. So when people look at the stuff you have, they assume, because they're broke and they can't afford to buy that stuff, they assume that you're rich, because this fictitious bottomless well, it comes into their mind where the money that you spent should be equivalent to or less than the amount of money you have left over to spend, when that is not the case on any scenario. But to perceive ourselves as not broke, we go and spend extra money on name brand stuff so that we look rich. But isn't it funny? Rich people don't buy brands. Rich people don't have logos all over their clothes. Athletes do. Usually the minority wealthy people do, so you got your black rappers and singers and, athletes that brand up all the time. But the rest of the wealthy people don't. But think about those black people that fell into wealth. And I'm going to say fell into wealth because you started off with nothing. You got a contract somewhere and you became a millionaire overnight. Still broke-minded with a lot of money in play. You have the ability to buy $700,000 gold chains and all this other stuff to show off your wealth. Still broke-minded, just rich. but you're doing the loud wealth to project to people exactly how wealthy you are, right? Which makes no sense. So let's talk about stealth wealth real quick. I want you guys to understand the difference. Stealth wealth is going to be the practice of prioritizing financial security over visible status. Instead of riding around in a brand new 2027, August of 2026, where you're the first person with it, you'd be riding around in a 1990 something that's reliable. And the extra $100-something thousand that you would have spent on being the first one to have the newest car, that extra money could be going towards making sure that you have a backup vehicle in case the first one's got to go to the shop. All other bills are paid off in case something else happens. You have emergency funds in case something unexpected occurs to your friends or your family members that you would otherwise want to go and assist. That is going to be the true secret wealth, where nobody knows how much money you have. Wherever you go, what you want, you get, and you walk back out of the store. But you're not going shopping in the mall on a weekly basis just because you have the capital, right? So this is going to be quiet, deliberate choices to appear less wealthy than you are and to find satisfaction in a strong balance sheet rather than in public displays of consumption. Like, take, for example, majority of the time, y'all see me on the show, no branded in anything. That's not my brand, right? If it doesn't have this and that's logo on it, you rarely can even find a brand anywhere on anything that I wear. If I don't tell you where it came from, you don't know what it's a shirt. It's a shirt. If you get to see my pants that day, it's just pants, right? I got it. It's comfortable. Looks nice on me. That's it. You know. But take a look at some of the other podcasters that are out there. You can tell what outfit they're wearing. You can tell what kind of shoes they have on. You can see the branding burned into the material. The difference in mentality is that I do not need to project the external validation of success because I learned something different. Many people get caught in a look rich model, acquiring the symbols of wealth, like a fancy car, brand, the oversized house, status symbol, often financed with debt that you can barely afford. Now you're on a financial struggle. This is going to create a fragile existence where any disruption to your income can bring the whole facade crushing down. You know, car poor is what we call a person that has a really nice, really expensive car, but they live in a hood. You're living on Section 8, but you're riding around in a Bentley. You're car poor. House poor. You might have a 10-bedroom house on the hill, but you got to catch the bus. You can't even afford a car. All your money is going towards that one asset. That's what makes you asset poor, right? But imagine house paid off, car paid off. Think about how much cheaper your standard of living is, because if you no longer have to pay that $2,000-$3,000 a month mortgage or the rent, and you no longer have to pay that $500-$700 car note, and your insurance is going to go down because you own the car instead of financing the car. So now you might be paying $50 to $100 on your car insurance instead of spending $300 to $500 on your car insurance, where you would otherwise be paying a total of $1,000 a month on the car and $2,000 to $3,000 a month on a house, which is a base standard of $4,000 a month on your standard of living. Before we start talking about utilities and groceries, when you shave $4,000 off the top of your standard of living because you own it all, you now only have like $1,000 or $2,000 a month left worth of stuff that needs to be paid for because you own everything else. So now your $60,000 a year lifestyle is actually a $24,000 a year lifestyle because you're not paying loans to look expensive. Yeah, that part. And then when you think about the phone plan, You pay an extra $35 a month to lease the phone from them. If you trade it in every other year and get a new phone, just as soon as you finished your last payment on the last phone, you're financing another payment on the next phone. You're always giving them an extra $35 a month for the phone. If you just keep the one that you own until it is no longer taking updates, which usually takes 5 or 6 years, that phone, as long as you don't break it, would be cheaper. So you own the phone, you own the car, you own the house, you're saving thousands of dollars. That's where you free up a lot of your a lot of your discretionary spending. And then it starts making more sense that you actually could live on $24,000 a year. The stealth wealth philosophy is going to flip things entirely. It is a be rich, look average model. It's not about being cheap. It's about being intentional. It's understanding that every dollar spent on conspicuous consumption is a dollar that could have been used to pay down the debt to the future you. It's recognizing that a flashy car isn't just a symbol of success. It's often a multi-thousand-dollar annual tax on your freedom. This leads us to the second law of our ideology. Your lifestyle must justify itself to your savings goals. Now, I know y'all have never heard this before. Your lifestyle must justify itself to your savings goals. Now, this is going to be the polar opposite of how most people budget. The conventional approach is going to be income minus expenses equals savings. You earn, you spend on your lifestyle, and you hope to save whatever's left. It puts the lifestyle in the driver's seat. Our new ideology is going to invert this equation, and it's going to make things a lot more challenging for you. Income minus savings equals expenses. You earn, you immediately pay the sacred debt to the future you, and then you design a lifestyle that fits within what remains. Now, this is going to be a difficult transition for a lot of individuals, because if you wanted to put away $500 a month and you only have $200 to $250 of extra money left over out of the month, you would ultimately have to get rid of $300 extra dollars or $400 extra dollars worth of costs in your life to be able to make that happen. But if this is the direction that you're trying to go, you'll find that your savings rates now dictate your lifestyle. So, and this calculation of, well, how much money do I need to save? Well, what kind of lifestyle are you looking to have? If you're looking to have a $72,000 a year lifestyle, you might need to put away $500 a month or $700 a month for the next 20 years. And if that were the case, you would have to take $700 out of your money, and then whatever you have left over, you would have to divide it between all of the primary bills. And then if you have anything left over, discretionary spending for entertainment can occur. But if you find yourself in a situation trying to put away the $500 or $700 and you don't have enough money to pay your basic bills, and you don't have any extra luxury items that you're paying for, you probably would have to redirect capital to the rent, like gas and water, and less money go towards the brokerage account. But you want to first build the mindset that I'm going to change into this direction in order to see that success occur. So every expense at this point must defend its existence, because a $200 dinner out, is it worth more than buying a small piece of an asset that can generate income for the rest of your life? Probably not. I know women are going to say, but you know, we got to live life now. We should be able to go out and have fun every now and again. That's your choice. $200 out one night You might decide to break that up into like $40 nights, 4 nights a month. Instead of a $200 night every time you go out, you might knock that down to $40 so that you can still have your entertainment, but you went from $800 a month on entertainment down to $200 a month for entertainment, where the other $600 a month will be going towards your future. So it's not about giving up fun. It's about reallocating a smaller budget towards reasonable fun now, so that you can have an undisclosed quantity of fantastic fun later. So if you think about the new car with a $700 a month payment, is the temporary thrill of that new car smell worth more than the freedom of having an extra $8,400 a year working for your future? You got to ask yourself that question. This isn't about shaming you for spending the money. It's about forcing you to make conscious trade-offs. It's about asking a simple question before ever having a significant purchase made. Because every time you want to make a significant purchase, you're going to ask yourself this question: does this move me toward freedom, or does it just delay that freedom? That's a pretty simple question to ask yourself. A person living the stealth wealth philosophy understands that low mandatory expenses are the ultimate luxury. This reflects an idea popularized by Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, which Michael has told us about on the show a time or two, who, while some of his views are controversial, offered a profoundly useful concept. The rich use money to buy assets, things that put money into your pocket, and then use the cash flow from those assets to fund the lifestyle that they want, which ultimately means that if I'm going to live off of my brokerage account and I want a $72,000 a year lifestyle, I'm going to put $750,000 or $800,000 or $900,000 into the brokerage account, so that after taxes, I got my $72,000 a year. If I'm going to live off of real estate, I'm going to flip houses, buy houses, create rental properties until I have enough capital coming in where the tenants are giving me a profit of $72,000 a year. Then that $72,000 a year outside of my original income will then be able to cover the lifestyle that I want. I'm not going to tap into the principal. I'm only going to benefit from the dividends or the return on investment. Right? Understanding this model, wealth becomes private and durable. You aren't trying to impress your neighbors. You are trying to impress one person, that 75-year-old version of you, who will one day be either deeply grateful for your discipline or deeply resentful for your short-sightedness. Now, for most people, the word budget is synonymous with restrictions and punishments. It's a financial diet. It's about all the things that you can't have. And this framing is a psychological trap, and it is why so many people's budgets fail when you think about it as a shortcoming. Now, make sure that you guys mash those reaction buttons as y'all come in, especially those of you that are coming in on TikTok. The third pillar of our ideology reframes this completely. Your financial plan is not a cage. It is a fortress. And it is not one to keep you in either. It's not going to act as a self-punishment tool. It is instead the ultimate act of self-care. It's about protecting your future self from stress and anxiety. And this is going to lead to our third one. Sound financial management is nervous system protection. Every financial decision that you make today sends a ripple into the future, creating either calm or chaos. Think about the anxiety of a looming credit card statement or the constant stress of living paycheck to paycheck. That is a state of nervous system dysregulation. So the stress of not knowing if my money is going to make it to my next paycheck, or not knowing if my paycheck will clear the bank by the time this particular bill is due, even though I know I have the money on the way, will it get here before I need to spend it, or will I have to spend it late? That is a level of anxiety that is the nervous system dysregulation, and it has real consequences for your mental as well as your physical health. So when you choose to pay your future self first, you are actively choosing to reduce the future stress, because every dollar that you transfer to savings or investment accounts is going to be a vote for a future with more peace of mind. You have more money to cover the spread. If you know that they're charging you uh, $55 a year for your registration for large vehicles, and you're putting away $10 a month for the registration for your vehicles, you can, at every 2 years, buy you a 2-year license plate or 2-year registration sticker, which prevents you from having to figure out where you're going to get the money from, because it's your birthday month and your registration's got to be renewed. You guys got to recognize every dollar that you transfer to savings and investments accounts is going to be a vote for the peace of mind that you have in the future. So building an emergency fund isn't about the numbers. It's about creating a buffer for resilience that allows your future self to remain calm in the face of uncertainty. The fear of the unknown typically leads us into the negative. So from this perspective, impulse spending on a credit card is almost a form of future self-harm. You are effectively stealing the peace of mind from the future you and replacing it with a legally binding obligation to pay for your present self's fleeting desires plus interest. You are exporting your desire for instant gratification into the future, where it will land on that stranger as a heavy burden of stress. And y'all know what I'm talking about. If you've ever been in a situation where you saw something that you wanted or needed now, that's how you felt when you bought it. You got it, you held on to it for a couple days, the novelty of it being around stopped being so important. Then eventually you put it into the closet, stop using it, stop even talking about it. Bill comes up, needs to be paid. And in that moment, while you have two different bills that are required to be paid by the same quantity of capital that's left over in your bank account, the thought that's going through your mind is, had I not bought that item that I am no longer interested in now, I would have the money today to cover this stress-free. Ladies, y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all went to Target and bought an extra collection of makeup, even though you got a bunch of makeup at the house. You got more makeup, more contour, more eyeshadow, more lashes. You did it to make yourself look beautiful, whatever the case may be. But the fact is that after you spent that $200, $300 on makeup this week, next week, a bill you wasn't expected to pop up, an auto pay from last year pops up. You're like, I forgot about that. Man, had I not paid for that, I would have the money for this. Guys, y'all do this too. Y'all pre-order GTA 6, don't even come out till November, buying PlayStations. Some of y'all buying stereo equipment. I see these old school cats, 50, 60 years old, that are buying lowriders, putting all of this money into lowriders. And as they put all of this money into lowriders, they're out there doing these lowrider competitions and these stereo competitions, and they're destroying the vehicle that they built in real time, as if that is supposed to like mean something. And these cars are like $50,000 to $100,000 to build up, and then they're doing a lowrider competition, busting up all the suspension, tires falling off the cars. They got to pay a bunch of money to rebuild these things, and I can't even find where they're actually actually winning. Not everybody's going to, if there is a prize involved, not everybody's winning the prize. So the people who broke their car in the competition didn't win the prize, wasted a bunch of money, went to an event that they can brag about later, but they're too broke to do anything else. And now they got to put the money back into the car before the next competition. Their future self would sell the car as a used car for less than what they paid for the car. And they're not even going to reap the rewards of all the years that they put into that vehicle. But they'll have the memories. Men do it too, ladies. But the moment that you bought that aftermarket catalytic converter, or the moment that you bought the modified Hellcat exhaust pipes, right after you installed them on the car, a new bill comes in that you forgot about. Car insurances need to be renewed. You got to put a higher down payment on it. Rent's being renewed. They want extra money for the rent for the upcoming 6 months. And this new unexpected or forgotten bill, you're going to think in that moment, fellas, damn, had I not bought the rims for the car last week, I would have the money today to pay for this item stress-free. So ladies, I ain't trying to just pick on y'all. I'm just saying this is what people do. We buy stuff. Gun fanatics, they'll buy extra accessories for their firearms. And then after they bought the item and it got shipped in, now they're in a situation where, I wish I had not spent that money, right? So here's a question. Would you do that to a friend? Take the money that they need to go and buy yourself some bullshit? Most people wouldn't. So why do you do that to the one person that you're guaranteed to become? This self-care framing changes everything. Budgeting is no longer about saying no to yourself. It's about saying yes to a future with less anxiety. The rules that you build aren't meant to restrict you. They are meant to liberate you from the tyranny of impulse and the anxiety of financial instability. So think of your financial plan as a well-designed home built to withstand the storms of life. Living without a plan is like living in a house with no roof, constantly scrambling for cover. And this idea of reframing your finances as an act of self-care is resonating with you guys. I want you guys to take a second to like and subscribe to the channel, continue to mash those reaction buttons, because we're going to keep digging into these powerful psychological frameworks that move you from just surviving to truly thriving financially. Ideology is going to be powerful, but as you guys know, without action, faith without work is dead, and so is this. It is just a thought process if you're not going to do anything to change it. A philosophy is only real when it is backed by a system, a set of automatic behaviors that execute the plan without relying on your fickle willpower. Motivation fades, discipline wavers. You cannot be responsible for making the right choice every single payday. There's going to be a moment where you're going to throw a few dollars or a few $100s in some situations on things that you might have could have not gotten this time around, or not at all ever. So you have to build a machine that makes the right decisions for you automatically. This is going to bring us to our fourth law. Build that machine, then trust the machine. The goal is to engineer a system where your wealth builds itself in the background, making success a constant, consistent situation. I said that twice, constant, consistent. A constant situation that is going to be repetitive as often as possible. And automation is going to remove the friction from daily decision making, and that is going to be why this machine has few critical parts that fail you. Because at the end of the day, if you are not dependent on yourself's decisions and you are depending on the decisions of the machine doesn't care if the new Jordans came out. The machine's going to take the money and put it where it's supposed to go regardless. The machine doesn't care if the new car came out. I just heard that somewhere in Asia that they have already released the robot girlfriends as low as $17,000 a girlfriend. That's cheaper than most American women. So to have an android bought and shipped to you for $25,000, that's cheaper than an American woman at $2,000 a month for all the stuff that she wants you to buy. And then you can get you a girlfriend for life that follows your instructions and do what you want them to do. I don't know how effective they're going to be, but the emotional stability would be there because you got an AI that doesn't talk back. Steven says, get in that membership, invest in your future self with information. He's not lying, guys, because Steven's in the membership every day. Matter of fact, Stephen, I don't know if I told you this before, but I did over the last few days put that information in there from China. And I also tag all of the stocks that you can get off of Stash App from the Chinese market. I have not done the digging to determine if profits from Chinese stocks will require you to file taxes in China, but I do know that internationally, profits that you get off of the Chinese market from Stash App are going to be considered taxable income discussions in your American taxes when you do go to claim all of your stock portfolios, because Stash App gives you a 1099 during tax season, and you can take that and put that on your taxes and send it to them so that you have it. So you just got to go back to, I can't remember the name of the guy, but it is supposed to be giving you information about Chinese stock market. So that should be somewhere in the name, the Chinese stock market. Click the link and it'll take you to all the information that you need for that. Michael says school only teaches servitude to the system. School isn't actually just teaching servitude, Michael. I understand that we've talked about this quite a few times where people really feel bad about school because as parents, we teach our children servitude. And as adults, what we learn as broke-minded individuals, lower status individuals, is that we are fundamentally from a system of servitude. Servitude meaning that you get up every day, you go to work for massa, you get just enough money to keep you alive so that you can go back to work for massa. This is a whole society of servitude. So when we have teachers teaching us, they're going to teach us how to follow instructions. We're going to learn how to read, write, spell, and count so that we can follow instructions. Then we're going to learn how to repetitively perform the same way we repetitively perform at work, at school, and when we go to jail for not following instructions. The school system is only as effective as the parents that are involved in the school system, because it is run by human beings, not machines. Therefore, if the human beings that were in the school had the knowledge and skill set that the kids needed to be successful, and the parents insisted that that knowledge was passed on from generation to generation, and the kids were reinforced that information from the parents at the house, then more often than not, the child's education will be better. Look at Asia. Learning is fun. But in Asia, they're teaching kids how to make, save, and invest money. They're teaching it. Every decision that the parents are making is about the kid's future, not about the kid's present. 3-4 years old, learning 5 different choreographies for Mozart and Beethoven. They've got extracurricular activities right now at 7, 8, 9 years old for kids that are planning on going to college. Well, the parents of kids that are planning to put their kids in college for med school. The kids are doing internships right now. They have a grading system right now where an F is a 70%, where in America, from what I hear, they have modified the grading system where a C is now like 65%. We're allowed to be dumber than Asians, and then Asians are more competitive so that they can qualify for the visa to come to America to be smarter than Americans to make money in the American market. But that's our fault as parents that the school doesn't have that incentive, not the school. Steven says, Michael, I learned a lot about Christopher Columbus and MLK year after year. Look, you can learn a lot about Christopher Columbus MLK, these days they can do Black History Month and teach everybody about Juneteenth, about the day the slaves got released. We can talk about Independence Day, President's Day, Donald Trump Day. We can talk a lot about the history of our country. But one of the things that they never talk about in school, retirement, forced retirement. And those are two different things, because you have retirement where you're too old to work and you choose to leave. Then you have forced retirement where you qualify for retirement and before they fire you, you quit, or you receive an injury and you no longer can work and now you are forced to retire. No school in America focuses on what are you going to do when what you do for work right now no longer applies to you. In America, we actually teach the athletic children to have a mind on top of their body, so that when their body breaks down and they can no longer perform in that sport, that they actually have a fallback. Because a $1 million athlete, a multi-million-dollar athlete, 2 or 3 years outside of their sport, finds themselves broke like everybody else, where their time as an athlete is so fleeting that people almost don't even recognize them anymore. The fame is gone. They're just another person. They're just another broke person, right? So, I mean, yeah, schools do teach us values, just not financial values. Michael says, then hire Chinese teachers, because most American kids are lazy and dumb. Most American kids are encouraged to be lazy in school. And because they don't apply themselves to learn the things they need to learn, that's going to be one of the reasons why they're dumb. I know that a solution to the problem would be hire a Chinese teacher, but I mean, if you hire a bunch of Chinese teachers to teach the American students who apparently, as you say, don't want to learn because they don't have a value in learning, the Chinese teachers won't have any new success with the children. Now, if the parents start teaching the children at home and then send the kids to school with questions to the teacher about financial investments, especially in math class, statistics class, economics class, or social studies class, and you start asking financial questions in those classes, I can guarantee you that the teachers will pivot, because the kids will be asking intellectual questions in a class that is related to that particular topic. Now, you can't go to like literature class and start talking about the stock market, but you definitely can walk into one of the classes that is counting money or doing social evaluations like social studies and start talking to the teacher about stocks and bonds and investment portfolios. And any teacher that's worth their weight in salt is likely going to pivot some of the curriculum. While they're still going to redirect you back to the main topic, they will pivot on some of those curriculums to talk to you about certain things, where they may even take a segment out of the class and say, hey, let's talk about money since all of y'all got questions. If one kid did it, that child would be considered disruptive. But if 5 or 10 out of 15 kids was asking about portfolios and 401ks and health savings accounts, and you had 10 or 15 kids out of 20 that was asking a teacher about long-term investments versus short-term growth, the teacher would have to change the curriculum. Because if the kids want to know, they're not disrupting the class per se, because they want to know how to be more successful. And most adults want kids to be successful. So that's exactly what the parent's going to do, the adult's going to do. They're going to help that kid be successful. So let's look at the mechanisms to make ourselves successful. The first thing you want to do is you want to separate your accounts for separate jobs, which is why I've told you guys plenty of times, there's well over 8,000 financial institutions in America. You need to have at least one credit union and one checking account in every state. And you should have a different account for each one of the scenarios that we're talking about. So your financial life is going to need to be compartmentalized. At minimum, you should have at least 3 separate accounts. Even if they're all in your local state, you need to have at least 3 separate accounts, preferably with 3 separate financial institutions. Why do I say that? Well, if you have 5, 10, 20 bank accounts with one bank, if your relationship with that bank goes south for any reason, all of your accounts are closed. Now, if your relationship with one of 10 banks goes south, you still got 9 banks. And if the bank that you're having a problem with is not the bank that receives your direct deposit, because your money comes into your direct deposit, money gets wired to a different account that you control, and then money gets spent. The bank that receives the direct deposit should only have a problem if your money's not being processed as it comes in. Every other account where money goes out, you have a disputable transaction because you made a purchase, things didn't go the way you thought it was supposed to go, and they have to rectify that situation. I actually had a scenario where I had bought the blackout license plate cover thing because of all the flock cameras, and no lie, I have effectively made a mistake and drove around with my license plate not visible for the last 2 months. And lucky for me, they ain't never caught me on doing it. So I like, damn, I gotta pull over and I gotta fix this, because if they would have been behind me when I was doing this, I would have been in a world of hurt. But ultimately, I was trying to get one because you got the little button that push it, and it does work. It does work. But they sent me one that was damaged. I call them about it. They're like, "Oh, we don't cover that under warranty." Why the fuck are you selling me something that doesn't cover under the warranty? Then installation, they don't cover the installation. So if you do it yourself and put it on a vehicle, if something happens to it, it's your fault. But when you call them and say, okay, well, the stuff you send me doesn't fit together, then they say, oh, well, set it on fire. Set it on fire, melt it, and then put it together. It should work. Well, if you're asking me to damage your product in order to put your product together, then you're going to tell me that you do not cover the product, especially after it's been damaged. But that's your recommendation, is to damage it. You have a defective product. Now, I said, oh, bank, I want a refund. Bank gave me the refund. But in some situations, the bank doesn't give you the refund. If you get that mad at the bank that you got gypped and they didn't protect you from fraud, you might close down your account. That's only going to happen to accounts that are making transactions, not accounts that are receiving money. Michael says, this book is an absolute must read for everybody. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, 1936, when Warren Buffett recommends it. Even when Warren Buffett recommends it. Okay. I know that some people say, well, Warren Buffett's a billionaire, so, whatever Warren Buffett says, you should do. I am not going to tell you that Warren Buffett doesn't have a lot of sense, because Warren Buffett's got a lot of money from the sense that he has. But one of the things that I do got to remind everybody is that everyone, including Warren Buffett, has the finish line in their speech. Cliff note the starting line in their speech, but very rarely builds the bridge from where you start to where you finish, which prevents you from having a step-by-step model on how to get there. At least an outline of how to get there. So the carnage that you experience is equivalent to if you was walking through the woods with your friends. There's a trail. Somebody who been down that trail before tells you that there's a beach party on the other side of the trail. They tell you where the trail is, but they don't tell you how to get through the trail. There's swamp, gators, fallen trees, burned down buildings collapsing. You got to converse through all of this stuff to get to the promised land. But because they leave out certain details, you don't know the catastrophes that await you because you haven't gotten there yet. They have trial and error, learned from their mistakes, and made it to where they are now. And they will highlight their successful decisions without projecting the failures. You cannot learn from half of the story. You need the whole story. But it is a good book to read. He said, Warren Buffett, The Snowball Effect. Doesn't change anything. Warren Buffett's snowball effect on how to pay down credit card debt is systematically usable. And I've talked about it on the show quite a few times. It is systematically usable under the conditions that you actually have extra money to spend like that. Again, a missing piece of the puzzle. Because what say you spent $10,000 on an emergency? You don't have an extra dollar. You can barely pay the minimum monthly balance. How can you utilize the snowball effect in order to pay off your credit cards? You can't. The missing piece to that puzzle is that you must have a surplus of capital that you are not using for your base standard of living. That could otherwise be used to invest. Once you have achieved that, then you could take that surplus and instead of building up a brokerage account, you pay down your credit card debt. So if you have a credit card or a number of credit cards, that might accumulate to like $250 a month worth of credit card bills, right? But you acquire either by picking up an extra job or reducing the quantity of stuff you have to spend every month, $500 a month that could be put towards that $250 a month bill. Then you can put the money on the method, the snowball method, where you're overpaying the credit card to pay down the debt, and that gives you the ability to benefit from the snowball effect. But a lot of the times there is a process where they are not walking you through how to set yourself up to be successful with this method. They'll tell you, well, this method does work under the conditions that you're capable of performing the method. And that's going to be where a lot of the times the disconnect occurs. And Michael says, question, have you read the book? Question, Michael, how does me reading the book or not reading the book change that fact? Because that does bring a side note, a straw man topic. Because I'm not saying that Warren Buffett doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm not saying that Warren Buffett has bad advice. What I'm saying is, and what I have always said, is that the financial gurus that either made it to be successful or advertise the selling of the idea of being successful usually give you the starting line, the finish line, and in some situations, a checkpoint. But they very rarely give you the details from the starting line to the checkpoint and from the checkpoint to the finish line. Like, metaphorically speaking, if life was like a video game, the financial gurus would tell you the highlights of how often the life game would be, but they would not give you that Gamer Pro magazine step-by-step walkthrough that we used to have before we had YouTube, where you could start from page 1 and flip page by page and complete the mission just by reading the information on how to complete the mission. By the time you get to the end of the book, you beat the game. That is the kind of life walkthroughs that financial gurus do not give. They give you highlights, hypotheticals. They do give you facts. They do give you details. Warren Buffett's method does work. I've talked about it several times on the show, but I talk about it after telling you get your money right, have a surplus, then use this method. Stephen says a lot of people have completed their method in a different economy than today's current conditions with this K-shaped economy. Tell me about it, Stephen. And Michael's talking about a book from 1939, and we're here in 2026. While some of those methods are still effective, it doesn't change the fact that the concepts are harder to apply under certain conditions. He says it's hard to talk about a book that a person has never read. No, it's not. It's easy to talk about a book that you've never read. Because think about this. I've already covered one of the concepts that you brought up, the snowball effect. I've also covered the avalanche effect. And covering the concepts that you just brought up that would come out of that book, we can discuss the methods, but that doesn't change the fact that the logic behind the disconnect, the missing pieces to the puzzle, you're still not articulating how me reading the book or not reading the book changes the fact that the disconnect is still there. I pointed out that there's a flaw in the system. And then you're going to ask me, did I read every book in the world to be able to justify the fact that there's a flaw in the system? You acknowledge that not all of the details are given to go from being broke to not being broke, then you still acknowledge the fact that there's a flaw in the system. So when I say that there's a flaw in the system and then you come back and ask me, did I read the book? That's not relevant to whether or not there's a flaw in the system. And it's an easy answer. It is not relevant because he's like, easy question. Easy answer, Michael. It is not relevant to the fact that I called out that there is a flaw in the system. And you challenge my statement that there is a flaw in the system where there's not all of the information is being provided. And you're going to say, well, did you read the book? How does that apply to the fact that there is still a flaw in the system? Can you prove to me that the book shows a step-by-step walkthrough from being broke to not being broke and not leaving out any details? Can you prove that the book shows that that even the failures in his efforts, where he not only talks about what you could do, he also tells you don't do from day one to day finish line, where he also talks about what do you need to gather to get started so that you have all the tools you need to follow the book and make it to a millionaire, where by the time you end up at the last page of the book that you should be just as successful as Warren Buffett over the same period of time. Can you prove that? Because if you can't prove that, Michael, then at the end of the day, what I told you, there's a flaw in the system. And with that flaw in the system, the details that are missing, you're supposed to figure it out along the way. They give you a pretty decent quantity of information, but it is not enough for the average person to directly apply that book to their day-to-day life. They can apply the strategies as the strategies meet their current life's conditions, but they cannot apply the whole book to their day-to-day life. He says, life is like a box of chocolates. You won't know till you open it. No, that's not true, because a box of chocolates, you know what's in that box, because even if it's an assortment, guess what's on the outside of the box? It tells you all of the flavors that are in the box. If it's a box of chocolates, that's one flavor. It just tells you what the flavor is on the outside of the box. Matter of fact, the outside of the box, before you open the box, it tells you all of the ingredients in the majority of the chocolates that are in the box. So before you even open it, you actually know the majority of what you're about to get yourself into. The only thing that you don't know, which reinforces what I just said, is details that are going to be missing out of the true narrative. How does the chocolates taste? And that's going to be equivalent to, because each one might taste differently, the same way it's going to be equivalent to, there's missing pieces to the puzzle, and each person's situation is going to be different, just like the flavors of the chocolates where you're not going to know what you're getting yourself into till you get there. But if you have the majority of the resources that you need to try what they're talking about trying, you are likely to accomplish some stuff, and then other stuff you have to figure it out on your own. So again, did I read the whole book? How does that apply to my statement? And how does that in any way, shape, or form contradict my statement? Because from what I see, it doesn't. He says you should run for governor. I probably should, but you know why I wouldn't run for governor at this point? It would take me away from my podcast. And then why would I run for governor? Running for governor would put me in a position where I would have to pay attention to a bunch of other people not doing what should be done, which doesn't improve my life at all. It might give me a little bit of political power. It might give me a little bit of publicity, but outside of whatever pension that they would offer, running for governor would just be me putting myself into a higher level of stress. I acknowledge that I do not directly contribute to the fundamental restructuring of our government. I acknowledge that. And while I acknowledge that, I also acknowledge that I navigate around the things that are outside of my control because I don't contribute to the improvement. So if I think that the government needs to be redesigned and I don't put any effort into it, the crap they're putting out, I do a podcast every day to tell you how to work around that. So should I run for governor so that I can help Kane choke slam flock cameras? Or should I just tell you guys that whenever possible, you need to put your license plate covered in a way where they're not taking photos of your shit on a regular basis? You can't stop them from taking photos of your license plate as you commute from point A to point B, specifically because it's against the law to have your license plate obscured while you're traveling from point A to point B. But you can reduce the quantity of times that the flock cameras take a photo of your license plate by covering your license plate in parking lots, in parking garages, and at your house. Whether you back up against the building where they can't see your license plate, or you cover your license plate when your license plate is exposed. That reduces the quantity of times that a police car can pass by and take a picture of your license plate. So, I don't have to run for governor to put a stop to that. I can just give you guys the heads up on that. Michael says, students are hard to understand. Well, life is going to be harder to understand, not just for the students, but for the people who haven't experienced it yet. More often than not, we're not sure if what you're telling us is true. And since it's coming from a source that we don't already have trust and confidence in, we have doubts. Now, the hard part that we have with students is the fear of change that's going to come from either the fear of success, the fear of failure, or both. Life might suck for me today, but that's because I'm okay with it. I don't have to change it. If I change it, the fear that it could get worse versus the fear that if it gets better, I can't maintain that, would put a lot of people in a situation where they would choose to stay content with the fucked up life they already got, because at least I know how to handle this. I don't know how to handle more failure, and I don't know how to handle more success, right? And that's going to be the same position that a lot of people are in when they turn down a promotion. They're afraid of the responsibility because what if I can't handle it? What if I fail? I appreciate the 200 joules, Michael. Thank you so much. That's the reason why I talk to you guys the way I talk to you guys, because look, I'm not saying that your information is wrong, Michael. You are the peer review of this podcast that validates a lot of the facts I put on this podcast. It's just what I'm saying is that truth of the matter is that more often than not, I have to bridge the gaps from the people who don't know, from the people who have no faith, from the people who have given up, and they are now on the verge of automating their life by doing as they're told, showing up, taking whatever they can get, and then trying to figure out how to survive off of that. Take those people and show them that there's a better way. So even though you've been following the show for half a year now, and a lot of the advanced level advice that I talk about, you can regurgitate it back to me. It's not wrong when I told it to you, and it's not wrong when you're telling it back to me. It shows me that you were listening. But I am telling the people who just got here this month, the people on TikTok who weren't here the last 9 months, hey, new information, intro 101 class, even though I got veterans in here, intro 101 class, fundamental information that leads them to the advanced information that we have in the membership, which helps people prepare, think, and grow to your advanced level. Because you got to understand, Michael, you 71 years old, you've been successful for at least the last 10 or 15 years. You've retired out of the game. You got your own assets. You've got revolving capital. You have extra money to spend. You have a side hustle that's actually a hobby that brings in more money. So all of the things that you want to do in life, you can do. You cannot remember 40 years ago, 55 years ago, when you were 15, 16, 17 years old, how you had to struggle, make mistakes, get messy, and fix it. Because as men, we didn't get help from everybody. As men, we didn't get guidance from everybody. We had, back in your day, we had more old heads telling us what not to do, sage advice. But we very rarely had people telling us what to do. So as you learned how to do it, you found yourself in a lot of situations where the decisions that you made benefited you, and now you are able to live off of those positive decisions. I got the more than half of my podcasts are 30-something-year-old individuals, 30 and 40-year-old individuals that just realized this year that their life sucked for the last 15 years because they've been making fucked up decisions, and now they have to start making the decision to pivot from reoccurring failure to financial success. So that requires us to every now and again go back to the fundamental core as we go through the show from different angles and different perspectives, because there's more than one way to be successful. And I'm going to try to cover every way to get started. But if I'm covering every way to get started, your advanced middle ground to the finish line, your 13 checkpoints into the finish line advice, while still valuable and while still effective for the individuals that have made it to that point, the rest of them who just got on a podcast today and just realized, oh shit, now I can learn how to fix my life. They're still at step 1. You're at step 100, and you're giving advice to people that are on step 60. And I'm trying to get the people that are on step 1 to step 60. I'm not saying that you're wrong, Michael. I'm just saying your advice is advanced advice for beginners. And I'm trying to bridge the gap from the beginners to your advice so that your advice still makes sense, but it makes sense because now they're capable of performing it. That's what I'm talking about. FX Trader says, irrational fear of failure. It's not irrational, to be honest with you. But let's go ahead and say irrational fear of failure is usually the legacy of parents who have the same problem. That's why it's not irrational. That's why it's not irrational. Because it is the legacy of the parents who also were not successful. So if my parents couldn't do it and my grandparents couldn't do it, how can I do it? Right? That's rational. If everybody else failed, how can I succeed? That's rational. But learning from other people's mistakes gives you an edge that most people don't think about, because these days we stopped planning the next generation's future by saying, hey, do this, don't do this, don't do that. Now, bro, I see on TikTok right now, and I'm talking to people on TikTok right now. I see people on TikTok right now that the adults, the women, the mothers are teaching their daughters that are like single digits how to dirty dance like the teenagers that are not old enough to dirty dance like the strippers in a strip club. And you hear them on the video like, yeah, do it, girl, get it. And I'm sitting over here like, why is you teaching your daughter how to shake her tail feather? Then why are you posting that on the internet for any registered offender to play that role 1,000 times over? Why? I don't know. I don't understand it, but it's their mentality. So when we talk about the one child that graduated and she did the stripper split and then bounced up and down on it on the stage, that's how she was taught from like 6 years old, that's what you do in public. She learned that behavior from her mother. She regurgitated it on the graduation stage. Not the appropriate place to do that, but she wasn't taught there's a time and a place for everything. She was taught, get it while you can. And the girl did it. She lost her degree as a result. She didn't learn consequences of her actions. So it's not irrational. It's a rational fear. It's irrationally holding you back because the courage truthfully is continuing to take action through the fear. So it's an irrational lack of courage through a rational observation of fear, because they recognize that their parents are failures, their grandparents are failures, their great grandparents are failures. They believe they're going to be a failure. A lot of them went to school where the teachers told them they were going to be failures. Some of them, mama told them that they wasn't going to be shit like they daddy. So they got generational failure being embedded into their core upbringing. And now, since they believe that all they deserve is to be a failure, they start embodying that failure mentality and start making self-sacrificing subconscious decisions that force them to fail. Then once they fail, that irrational fear of failure becomes a rational observation of inability to perform. They did it to themselves, but it's a foreshadowed position that was pre-designed by their own decision-making skills. That's regurgitated from what they saw from their mothers. Michael said, maybe I should grade when class 101 starts. Step one, get off the couch. Yes, that's going to be the first step. Well, you gotta think about wanting to get off the couch. So we're really going to get down to the core of things. You got to really change your mind and get your ass up first, then start applying yourself. But when you start applying yourself, what are you applying yourself to? One of the things that a lot of people feel bad that they cannot make change because they cannot personally think of another way off the top of their head. We know how to pivot when the police come. We know how to pivot when the bill is due. We know how to pivot a debt collector. We know how to pivot a medical bill. We know how to take advantage of a glitch in the system. But what we don't think about is how to succeed. We very rarely sit around a campfire with 4 or 5 of our best friends and brainstorm ways to legally make money in a way where we don't got to put a lot of effort into it. We don't brainstorm that stuff. We'll come together and we'll talk about sports. We'll come together and talk about a hot chick. We'll come together. We'll talk about cars, guns, police, politics, government, geopolitical trade. We'll come together and talk about shitty days at work. But we don't come together and talk about ways to make money. The last time my homeboy called me was to tell me about something stupid. He didn't call me about a money-making opportunity. He didn't call me about an option to be successful. The last time my homeboy told me about a money-making opportunity was in 2019, and I made $250,000 on that idea. No joke. I bought 2 Dodge Ram F-150s, 2020 Dodge Ram F-150s. Each one of them cost $45,000 a piece. No, one cost $45,000, the other one cost $55,000. He told me about one financially good decision back in 2019, and I made $250,000 off of that idea. It is 2026. He has not brought me another idea. But when I tell you guys, that's the same guy that I do so many things for. Even though I say that it's a wasted effort on certain people, I still am seen as doing so many things for this guy. Now you know why. Because he gave me one idea that put $250,000 in my pocket. So if I help him out a little bit down the line, I'm paying back that idea and holding him down a little bit. Even though he doesn't do anything good for himself, he found one good idea and I took advantage of that. But how many of y'all had a friend that gave y'all even one good idea that you can make $250,000 off of? In 1 year, not over a lifetime, in 1 year. How many of y'all had that friend? Most of us don't have that friend. And today, that same friend that I got out of ideas. Right? So that's what this podcast is for, is to bring you guys more ideas. FX Trader says, that is an excellent point. The mentality of failure. Yes, exactly. The mentality of failure. Michael says, the fear of success, that people are happy living in their trash. Yes, that's exactly true too. That's exactly true too. So people will find themselves content where they are because they know how to handle that. Let's look at a couple of these accounts, because I told you guys that you needed to have at least 3 types of accounts. One of the accounts is going to be the in and out account, your regular checking account. Your paycheck lands here and essential bills are paid from here. I would split this up into 2 accounts, where one account receives money in and another account takes money out to pay bills. I would actually have 2 inbound accounts. One inbound account to bring money in from your job, any job that you have. And then I'd have a separate account that only gets money from the government when they're issuing the refunds and stimulus checks. That way, if they want to tax my account, they're not taxing my paycheck account. If for any reason I have to pay taxes, it's coming out of the account that they give me my refunds from. It's not coming out of the account that I deposit my checks into. This is before we talk about garnishing wages. This is talk about voluntarily paying the outstanding bill on your taxation when they tell you that you owe money on your taxation. If they're charging the account, because they're not going to tell you when they're going to charge it. They're charging the account that has the money in it. It is not the account that your paycheck goes into. Then you have another account, so that's account number 3, where your bills get paid from, whether it's automatic bill pay or manual pay. You have that account. But if you're going to have revolving automatic bill pay that is separate from manual pay, you want to have that as a specific account. Manual bill pay versus automatic bill pay, where the automatic bill pay has a surplus of capital for when the bills come in. Even if they haven't come in yet, that's okay. There's money still being stacked up above and beyond the expected coming bill. That allows for you to fix it and forget it, because as long as there's more money there than what the automatic bill pays on that account needs, you don't have to worry about that account going under. And now you have the manual, I got to contact these people and pay it directly to them account. That's 4 accounts, but we said we needed at least 3. And this is the processing hub, not a holding tank. The future you capital account is going to be another one, where your primary savings and investment hub is going to be the high yield savings accounts and the brokerage accounts. Its only job for this particular account, where we're now talking about account number 4, is to receive payments for your future self. Money flows into that account, but it should be very difficult for it to flow out. Then you have a 5th account, which is lifestyle spending. And I might even say a 6th account, which would go towards credit card payments or online purchases. That is separate from inbound money, separate from outbound money, separate from automatic bill pay money, separate from savings and investment money, so that any online transaction that you did not approve does not directly impact the rest of your money. Compartmentalize this stuff. The lifestyle spending account being a separate account with its own debit card after your paycheck has landed and the automatic payments have been made to your future self, the rest of the money that you're spending for the remainder of the month is transferred into one of these spending accounts. When this account is empty, your discretionary spending is done. If you're going to be like me and Steven, if you've got discretionary money, it's going into your investments. When you have emergency money, or when you have an emergency finance, you're redirecting investment money to the emergency. But if you don't have an emergency, the majority of your money is going towards your investments. Because why? What am I going to do today, frat party, sorority party, that I can wait and do in like Tahiti or, Thailand or Singapore or Seoul or, Philippines, you know what I mean? Indonesia, Vietnam, Kazakhstan, Bangladesh, special shout out to Bangladesh, Belarus. We can go to other places and make our money go longer instead of throwing a bunch of money in the sky in a crowd full of college girls who are only talking to us because we're throwing money in the sky that they're picking up off the ground to put gas in their car to get home. The separation, man, Lord help me. The separation of all of these accounts is crucial. This is going to be a psychological firewall that prevents you from accidentally overspending on your priority money. Okay. The second account, or the second thing you're going to be needing, is an automatic transfer. So we're looking at account number 6, maybe talking about again account number 3, but this is going to be the heart of the machine. The moment your paycheck hits any of your accounts, you're going to have automatic transfers that are going to send some of your money that you predetermined to debt payment for yourself, for the future you, into an account that's going to be utilized for the future you. And this happens without you touching a button, ensuring that future you gets paid before you own up to having any of those impulses that will have a chance to sabotage the plan. So if let's say you get paid on the 3rd, your money clears the bank on the 3rd. You have an automatic transfer happen on the 3rd. By the time you wake up on the 3rd, the money's gone. So before you can even get in there and look at your balance, the money is gone. It's somewhere else. All you got left is all you got to do whatever it is that you just thought about doing today. That prevents you from sabotaging yourself, because if you've got a couple extra dollars in the account, you might think, I can just invest in myself next month. And the response to that is going to be the same as a college student saying, I'm just going to take a semester off. Taking one semester off turns into taking 2 semesters off, turns into taking a year off, turns into taking 2 years off, turns into never going back. And the same thing is going to happen with investing in yourself. Taking a month off from investing in yourself turns into 2 months off, turns into reoccurring spending this money on probably bailing yourself out of a lot of financial problems. But you forget to take anything extra and go put it on yourself. Eventually, as you pay down some of these financial problems, you get enough financial relief to think to yourself, I'm entitled to discretionary spending on some bullshit. And that is when you start sabotaging your future self. Because once you've paid down all the credit card debt, once you've paid off the car, once you've paid off the house, once you've paid off that cell phone that you're renting from the phone company, instead of going to the club, instead of celebrating, instead of upgrading and buying a newer car, upgrading and financing a newer phone, upgrading and buying a newer house, start putting the money back into that account in mass surplus to make up for lost time. People don't think about that. But how much do you think that you should be paying to start with, right? Since we're going from broke to not broke, the common starting place would be about 10% of your income. And then you would gradually increase 1 to 5% every month until you reach about 15 to 25%. Why? Well, if you make $3,000 a month That's $300 in your bank account. 10% is a lot of money. If you make $40,000 a year, that's $4,000 in your bank account. If you're making $50,000 a year, that's $5,000 in your bank account. If you're making $60,000 a year, that's $6,000 in your bank account. Now, when we look at $6,000 a year, that's $500 a month. So 10% is a lot of money out of the average broke American. Okay. But if we find that that same average broke American might have $1,500 or $200, $1,500 or $2,500 a month worth of discretionary spending, when they start spending their money responsibly, you may find that 20% is feasible, which is $1,000 a month, which is $12,000 a year, which out of $60,000, you'll be putting away $12,000, which means that you would ultimately have what, $38,000 worth of lifestyle that you had to pay for out of a $60,000 a year income. If you was making $50,000 and you were taking $12,000 out, right? That'd be putting you somewhere. Well, that would have been putting you somewhere around 38. Where the other example would have probably been putting you closer to $48,000 for a $60,000 lifestyle. But either way it goes, you understand that if you had extra money to go around, when you're no longer keeping up with the Joneses and charging it to the Underhills, and you start finding out that instead of me riding with the crew, wasting money for them to have a good time, let me just put this money in places where when they no longer talk to me, I'm still having a good time. You might find that you have way more money lying around. But pick a percentage. Start there. If you're really hard up with money, you're living borrowing against a stone, and you got a lot of family obligations that you're trying to take care of all at the same time, you might want to start with 5% just to get started. And 5% of your income would be like $150 out of a $3,000 income. You might want to start with 5%, but pick a percent and start there. Pick your 5% and then work your way up to 10%, and then get yourself eventually within 6 to 9 months up to 20%. Right? Third thing you want to pay attention to is zone-based categories and the cooling off rules. And this is going to really, really help you guys. I didn't do it. I swear I'm doing it today, Steven. As soon as I said cool off rule, Oxford's. Oxford's. So I'm grabbing a link as soon as I finish with the show, and I'm going to put that link into the thing. And a matter of fact, I'm actually gonna send a couple of screenshots of some of the shoes that I was designing so that you can kind of see the idea of what I was talking about when I told you that you can kind of look at the site, decide what kind of shoes that you want to create from them, look at the price, take a screenshot of it, and then come back later when you have acquired the quantity of money you want to spend on the shoes, and then go get the shoes at that point. I'm going to do that today. For your lifestyle accounts, you're going to need some rules. This is going to be where a zero-based budget can be very powerful. Every dollar is going to be assigned a job. $500 for groceries, $200 for gas. This stops the impulse spending. And the impulse spending is going to happen when you have a vague pool of money, which is why me and Michael had that debate I think last week, when I told him that there's a difference between budgeting and saving, because saving is acquiring a specific quantity of money to buy certain things, and anything inside of that quantity of money can be bought. So if you're saving up to $10,000 and you need something for $500, you've got $5,000 in there already. You can take out $500 and go and get what you need. That's savings. When you're budgeting, you could have $25,000 in this account, but if you don't have $1 dedicated to the item you're about to buy, you still can't buy that item. That's budget. And that's what we're talking about right now. You're also going to need a cooling off rule for any changes in the machine. You want cooling off rule for any desire to make a purchase. And depending on how much stuff you buy on a regular basis, depends on how many weeks you wait before you get something, right? But if you feel the need to reduce or pause your savings transfers, you must wait 30 days before you do it. Write down a reason that you're trying to reduce it, and then revisit it in a month. If it is necessary, you're going to feel the financial strain and you're going to make that change. But most of the time, the impulse to make the financial change will pass, and the machine will have kept on track without you having to do anything different outside of maintaining consistency with your plan. And the same thing is going to happen with impulse buying. We see things and we want it because we don't have it, not always because we need it. We might be able to use it, and if we can use it, we might find even more value in it. But when we think about how often we can actually utilize it, we might find that it is not as feasible as we thought. Then we have to take into consideration yet another issue. Issue number 2 is going to be, if I buy it, what could I have bought with the other money? And then issue number 3 we have to think about is, what do I do when I no longer need it? Now, if all of this stuff is going through your head, you say, well, you know what? I'm not going to buy it today. I'm going to put it in a cart, send myself a link to it, take a screenshot of it, keep it in my information somewhere, and then look at it in a week, in a month, in 3 months. If I still want it, then I'll get it. By that time, no matter how much it costs, $100, $500, whatever, I should have been putting money aside to go get it. By the time I get enough money to buy it, I should be able to buy it, whether I need it or not. If it's a ridiculous impulse buy, if I wanted to buy the new John Cena last year on tour 2025 custom belt, if that's what I wanted to buy, and the only value that I have for that is remembering the fact that he retired. If I'm going to save to get it, then I go get it. Steven says, I know this goes against all your teaching, but I am a Nike addict. I got 500 more to spend until I have enough color I want of the Nike and LV Run in my size. My shoe addiction is bad. Well, you understand that you've got a shoe addiction. Instead of buying the Nike shoes, you should be buying the Nike stock. Somebody jumped on here earlier today talking about Nike stock is booming right now. Instead of buying shoes for your feet, you should be just buying the stock from the company so that you can get paid off of having other people buy Nikes. If you're budgeting money to go buy Nikes, you can do that. You can do that. Now, the feasibility of that purchase, it's not going to come from if you can afford it. The question is, out of the number of shoes that you already have in your collection, how many of them do you wear every day? If you've got more than 7 pairs of shoes, you should be able to wear each shoe once a day. If you've got, or once a week, which means that you'll be wearing each shoe 4 times a month. If you've got enough shoes where each shoe could be worn once a month, now you're looking at, you might have too many shoes, because if the lifespan of the shoe would likely be 3 to 5 years, and you have enough shoes in your collection that if you wore them all regularly, you would run out of shoes in 30 years. You likely have enough shoes to last you for the rest of your life. So it does not have a purpose outside of personal desire. He says, I have 10 new pairs in my storage locker now. 10 new pairs. I asked you, how many pairs do you have in all? So if you got 10 new pairs, you already got 10 brand new pairs of shoes that you can wear once a week for the upcoming school year, where you're wearing a different brand new pair of shoes every day. Now, for the average shoe connoisseur, your first 10 days of college is like a fashion show, because your colleagues, especially if you sit in the desk where your shoes can be seen, are going to be like, yo, man, you always got a brand new pair of Nikes, man. What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. And that's why you bought them, for the external validation. When you go out to the basketball court and then you switch out to one of your older pair of Nikes, where you have a brand new pair of Nikes that you wear every day, and you got an alternative pair of Nikes that you wear when you want to go out there and get your shoes scuffed up. Again, the fact that you have that many shoes, that, you know, people can comment on the fact that you have that many shoes. The benefit that you have out of that is that you always have a pair of shoes. However, you say a lot more than 10. So you don't even know what the number is. If it's 50, if it's 100 pairs of shoes. The fact is that if you're not wearing all of those shoes, if you wear 1 or 2 pairs of shoes on a regular basis, but you have a collection of shoes that you haven't worn yet, it's a waste of money. Doesn't matter if it's an addiction of yours. It doesn't matter if it's a dream of yours. It doesn't matter if you want to call it a hobby. It's a waste of money, because the mentality of wealthy would be to buy out of necessity. You can buy a Nike collection out of necessity, but that would ultimately mean that you would have like 8, 10 pairs of shoes at the max, and that's all you would buy. And you would not buy another pair of shoes until one of those shoes got damaged beyond repair, where you cannot wear those shoes anymore. So you got 10 new pairs of shoes. That ultimately means that you don't have a reason to buy another pair of Nikes for the rest of your life. Or at least, since Nikes do have a decent lifespan, you don't need to buy another pair of Nikes for 5 more years. Because with 10 pairs of shoes, you're going to wear 1 shoe a day, 4 days out of the month, out of 10 pairs of shoes, which means you got 3 spares. So if 3 shoes got messed up, you still would have 7 pairs of shoes to last you over the next 10 years. You don't need to buy any more shoes as far as Nikes. And what was it, Stacey Adams, or I can't remember the name of the dress shoes that you bought. You're switching your wardrobe from jeans, t-shirts, and Nikes to dress shirts, dress pants, and dress shoes, which also is going to mean that you're going to, instead of buying all of these Nikes, you're going to start buying all of these Oxfords and you know, all of these other designer pairs of shoes. I've seen like the Monk 2s and all of these other designer pair of dress shoes for business professionals, where you would have 5 or 10 pairs of those, which would make your Nikes obsolete. So that still makes it's a luxury. But when you ask yourself, do I need this? No, I don't. So yeah, I recognize you said that it goes everything that I've been teaching, but and I acknowledge that you guys got to impulse buy at some point. But as long as you recognize for yourself that that action is a waste of money for yourself, it is what it is. Because when I tell you guys to do what you know is right, stand up for what you believe in by any means necessary, and accept the consequences of your actions before you perform the action. If you accept the consequences of buying a bunch of Nikes that you're never going to wear before you buy the Nikes, buy the Nikes. But when you look back at all of the stuff that you could be buying now, had you not been buying them Nikes, and you feel a little bit of regret in that moment, I'm going to tell you, I told you so. It is what it is. Now, this machine is going to be your system, guys. It's going to enforce all of the ideologies that we've been talking about tonight. It outsources your discipline to unemotional processes that execute your best intentions, even when you're on your worst day deciding to buy yet another pair of Nikes that just came out, right? Life is not going to be a smooth ride. It's going to be full of twists, turns, hurdles, and obstacles. You will face unexpected expenses and income fluctuations. A financial plan that only works in the best case scenario isn't a plan, it's fantasy. A robust ideology must include a plan for when things go wrong. This is going to be our 5th law, which is planning for failure to ensure success. And this means that you got to build a system that is shock resistant. Financial resilience isn't about avoiding shocks, it's about having a plan to absorb them without catastrophic failures. And we're going to do this by creating the 3 budget scenarios from before as crisis hits. Baseline budgets. That's your normal everyday plan, the machine that we design operating at full capacity. You're making full payments to your future self. This is going to be for when things are going accurately, all according to plan. A-team style. I love it when a plan comes together. Scenario number 2, the bad month budget. This is a pre-designed uh, austere plan for a minor financial shock. So you have a pre-decided hierarchy of sacrifices. The things that you need that you can't do without, the things that you don't really want to do without, but you don't need, and the things that you can give two shits about if you have. You understand? So things like maybe restaurant budget goes to zero, or subscriptions are on pause. Crucially, you should also define a minimum savings floor, meaning that you're not going to stop investing in your brokerage account. You just might reduce the quantity of money that you put towards it. So perhaps you might have been on a baseline that's around 15%, but your minimum is 5%. If things are going good, you can be putting your 15% in there, and then when things start getting tough, you roll back to 5%. This preserves the habit of still contributing to your future self. The debt to your future self is still going to be serviced, while financial planners agree that in a true emergency, like facing eviction, pausing all savings might be necessary. But why would you be facing eviction if you're paying all of your bills accordingly? The goal is going to be to make that observation an absolute last resort, cutting all investments and putting money towards an emergency change. Because usually, from what I understand, when you're paying your bills on time, the only two times that you face an eviction is when someone in your household violates a policy on the property so severe that the manager doesn't want you there, like you pissed off some of the other tenants, or the property is under new management and they're not renewing your lease. That's when evictions usually occur, if you're paying everything on time. But if you're a homeowner, as long as you're paying the mortgage on time, you don't have to experience this. Scenario number 3, the growth months. This is a different budget. This is just as important as what happens when things get bad. So when you get a bonus or a raise, for most people, this is going to be new income that is immediately absorbed by lifestyle creep. The car gets nicer, the house gets bigger, brand new phones come out, they get a new wardrobe, they start getting their hair did in more expensive ways, they get longer fingernails with dazzle jewels on them, all this other stuff, right? They start partying, they start hanging out with friends, everything's on me this time. The growth month budget is your pre-commitment to fight lifestyle creep. At the very least, a powerful rule to have is that 50% of all unexpected or new income goes directly to the future you. So you hit the lottery, you win $500,000, $250,000 goes away for your future self before you spend $250,000 anywhere else. If you're smart, you win $500,000 in the lottery, you're going to put $250,000 to yourself. You're going to have to take $250,000 out for taxes and then have, or not $250,000, maybe $150,000, $175,000 for taxes, and then the rest you can do whatever you want with. This is going to ensure that as your income grows, the gap between what you earn and what you spend widens, accelerating your path to freedom. And this is the difference between the K lifestyle, Stephen, that you talk about on the show. After I brought it up and you talked to me about it, the difference between the K-shaped lifestyles is wealthy people continue to put a larger gap between what they make and what they spend, and broke-minded people keep spending more money because they're making more money, and that's going to be where the K is going to come from. If I was at a $50,000 a year lifestyle and now I'm in a $60,000 a year lifestyle, and I go from putting away $5,000 a year in my brokerage account to $15,000 a year in my brokerage account, I'm going to be on the top half of that K. If I go from a $60,000 a year lifestyle to a $70,000 a year lifestyle, and I up my cost of living to $65,000 a year, I'm still paying that $5,000. I'm on the bottom half of the K. So as I bring in extra money, like for example, you're going to college, you're going to see a refund from college in a few weeks. Everything that you didn't spend when you got all your books paid for, all your labs, everything to that effect, everything you didn't spend off your grants and scholarships, you're going to see a refund. You should put that entire refund into your brokerage account. If you need something throughout the semester, you can, instead of taking it back out of the brokerage account, even as a dividend, you can invest less into the brokerage account to get what you need out of your day-to-day spending. Because if you got back $5,000 or $7,000 off of your refund September 15th, and you put that directly onto your brokerage account, you put more money on your brokerage account in one transaction than what you were able to put on your brokerage account in 6 months. So you got a 6-month head start. That doesn't mean stop investing, but that does mean that, well, you're putting away $400 a month to your brokerage account. And if you need something that costs $200, you put $200 in the brokerage account and take care of that $200 expense, because you already put $7,000 down for the next 6 months. Where in October, you need to start working on your financial aid for January, because even though you get grants and scholarships that are already assigned to you for this fall term, you have more entitlement to more grants and scholarships for the spring term, which means that whatever isn't automatically issued to you, they can issue you even more, up to the maximum cap that they're allowed to give you. And you'll end up getting even more money next semester, which means that whatever you don't spend next semester could be another $5,000 or $7,000 that you get, that you can put back into the brokerage account again. And then if you decided to be a summer school student, you can do it a third time in February and March for May, so that by June, when the summer semester starts, you can get another stack of cash, which means you might get another $5,000 or $7,000, which would have been like $15,000 to $21,000 out of the whole year that they gave back to you, probably before you even touch student loans, that you could have put into a brokerage account, where you would be putting more money into the brokerage account for the fiscal year than what you would have made off of your job. Any extra money that comes in goes to the brokerage account. Then if down the line you need to buy you a new laptop or something to that effect, budget for it. Budget for it. But if you're putting $20,000 a year away for 3 years of college that you're going to be there, you're going to be there at least 3 years, maybe more. That's $60,000 extra in your brokerage account before student loans hit you. When you get out of college, you're going to be rolling. You're going to be rolling. Because even at a 10% return on investment, that's $6,000 extra a year that's coming back to you before you start talking about the extra principles that you put down on top of it. And if we talk about compounding interest, that 60 grand might be 120 grand, or probably 75 or 80 grand, probably around about that area, which means you'd be getting like $8,000 back return on investment. But it's still way more accessible to you after you get out of college than what you had before you went in there. Where you could be one of very few students that says, I went to college and it benefited me, right? By designing these 3 scenarios, you remove panic decision-making from the heart of the moment, where in the minute that bullshit happens, you start impulse spending to rectify the situation. A lot of times you take money that you don't have to cover a problem that can wait, so that you don't have to think about it right now. Where, like I told you guys before, no emergencies need to be done in the next 24 hours unless it's something that you're doing for somebody else and they told you 5 hours before the deadline that they've got a problem that they need resolved right now. You yourself have no problems in your life that cannot be resolved in the next 3 weeks. Can't name anything. Can't name anything that can't wait 2 to 3 weeks. Can't name anything, because the most immediate situation that happens would be 1, hospital delayed bill, 2, house burns down, and if you've got the warranty policies on the house, the insurance coverage is going to pay for your hotel, right? Didn't think about that part. What about if your apartment gets destroyed? If you've got the proper insurance coverage on that, they're probably going to pay for a hotel. So you ultimately don't need the immediate. What if your car breaks down? Your car insurance has rental car coverage on it, which means you, at least for the first couple days, don't need a car, right? So there's nothing within the first 24 hours of bullshit hitting the fan that requires you to spend the money right now, but we usually spend it right now so that the problem can be resolved right now, so that we can go back to the peace of mind of not having that problem. But that usually, if we do this in an ill-timed fashion, puts us in another problem because a reoccurring bill is coming up and an emergency got paid for before the reoccurring bill, when the emergency could have waited until after the reoccurring bill. When the shock hits, you just got to execute the plans because you've already got the plan set up. The machine manages your cash flow, but to truly solidify the ideology, you need a set of high-level rules that governs your major life decisions. And these prevent the catastrophic mistakes that can derail decisions of a good habit, where you have decades of good habit that gets thrown off by one impulse buy. And this right here is going to be our sixth law. Discipline is remembering what you wanted most, not what you want now. What do you want the most in your future, not what you want now? So if living in the Philippines is your end-all, be-all goal, to get a long-standing visa over there, you need a $24,000 a year income, and that would probably require you to safely have a $30,000 a year income, which ultimately you have to ask yourself if you're going to be there forever or if you're just going to be there temporarily. If you're going to be there temporarily, your American lifestyle for the 1 year that you're spending in the Philippines would also have to be covered, which means that you would either have a $40,000 or $50,000 a year lifestyle in America, plus your $30,000 a year lifestyle in the Philippines, which is an $80,000 income for yourself. Or if you're going to reduce all of your expenses down to $24,000 a year because you own everything, and then your $30,000 a year lifestyle in the Philippines, which is a $60,000 a year lifestyle, now you're deciding, oh, this is how much money I need to either save for my future self to get paid for from my money's principal, or this is the kind of money that I need to make off of a digital nomad where I'm working off of my computer, getting paid this quantity of money to have this kind of lifestyle. What do you want to do most in the future? Not what do you want to do now, right? And then build a plan to get there. These are hard, fast principles that you adapt as part of your identity. And I got a few commandments for you guys. These are financial commandments. And commandment number one, the one thing, discipline. For the most capital intensive parts of your life, simplify aggressively. One primary home, one reliable car, one core expensive hobby, if that. This isn't about minimalism for its own sake. It is about strategically preventing the silent creep of complexity and financial drag. Because if you got a 1986 Toyota Corolla, you buy a 1997 Toyota Corolla, you buy a 2027 Toyota Corolla, or a 2016 Toyota Corolla in addition to that, now you got 4 Corollas in your driveway. If you've got all of those cars on insurance, you're paying for 4 vehicles, but you can only drive them one at a time. You only need 1 car per person in the household, but 1 car that you're responsible for. If you're going to have a backup plan where you have 1 extra vehicle in case the first vehicle breaks down, that one is unregistered and uninsured, sitting somewhere under a tarp, waiting for you to come and get it. Battery on a charger somewhere, waiting for you to come and get it, so that when your primary driver breaks down, that you can drop that one off on the shop at the shop, take the registration off, put it on the other car, and probably what I would have done would take the registration off of the car that broke down, put it on the car that's sitting there before I turn around and take the car that broke down and put it into the shop. That way I can drive to the shop with a registered and insured vehicle dropping off a car that doesn't have registration and insurance so that they can take their time and fix it. Because it's not an emergency. I already got a car, right? That would be the backup plan. But I wouldn't backup plan a Bentley or a Benz or a BMW or anything like that. If you're driving a Toyota and you're going to have a backup plan, if it's not a Corolla, it's a Camry. If it's not a Camry, it's a Civic. If it's not a Civic, it's an Accord. If it's not an Accord, it's a Maxima. Why? Because these three cars are some of the best, long-lasting, very cheap to buy, very cheap to maintain, very cheap to insure vehicles that will get you from point A to point B. They look all right, but it is not about flash. It is about performance, and it's about longevity, right? Because what you could buy, if you could check Kelley Blue Book on any given day, a Nissan Maxima, a Honda Civic, Honda Accord, a Toyota Corolla, Toyota Camry, those 5 cars, you could probably buy all 5 of those cars for the same price as a BMW or Mercedes-Benz, and all of the other expensive name brand cars that everybody trying to use versus use. Because the only time that a Benz is the same price as a Toyota or a Hyundai or a Honda or a Nissan is when the Benz has almost 200,000 miles on it. A Honda or a Toyota could have 50,000 miles less than the Benz and be worth the same price because the Benz is no good. But the Benz costs more money to fix. Think about that. Each major asset that you get adds maintenance, it adds insurance, it adds taxes, because in a lot of states, they have a year-over-year taxes on your vehicle's registration. And it's also going to have a mental overhead because you have to maintain these things. You have to manage the budgets for these things. Limiting these big ticket items frees up immense capital to fund your future stuff, and it frees up an immense quantity of mental fortitude that is utilized to keep these things together. Commandment number 2, thou shalt not, or let me rephrase that, thou shalt avoid consumer debt. I was about to say thou shalt not get into consumer debt, but either way, it is the same commandment. Avoiding consumer debt. This is a cardinal rule in our ideology. High interest debt from credit cards and personal loans is a direct attack on your future. And this is different from borrowing secured and unsecured loans from your school at a reduced rate to put that money into a brokerage account for an enhanced rate to get the profit, which is the difference between the two. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about borrowing money to buy bullshit, where the bullshit doesn't turn you a profit, but you owe somebody money with interest because you bought that item. That's what we're talking about. It's going to force you and your future self to pay for your present self's impatience, financing a car that you can't afford because you're not willing to wait to buy a car cash up front that you can afford. That's a waste of money, right? While some people may use credit cards strategically and pay them off within the month so that they don't have the interest, the simplest and safest principle for the system is to build an identity as someone who just does not carry consumer debt. If you can't pay for it in cash from your lifestyle account, you cannot afford it. Even if you can charge it to your credit card, even if you can cover it some kind of way, if you cannot get it. So let's say that the new 2026 model, whatever car you want to get, is $25,000. Pretty cheap in today's market, but you don't have $25,000 plus tax. which would likely make it closer to $30,000. If you don't have that available, you shouldn't be buying a car. Wealthy individuals clearly state more often than not that you should have somewhere between 3 times more and 10 times more than the cost of the item that you want. So if you wanted a $25,000 car, you should at least have $75,000 lying around to buy a car. If you want $250,000, or if you want a $25,000 car and you're doing it from the 10 times amount, you would have $250,000 lying around to buy the car, which ultimately means that the 10% return on investment from the principal of the brokerage account will be buying the car, not your paycheck. Commandment number 3, the asset first filter for all major purchases. Before any purchase over a certain threshold, say like $1,000, I would do it less, maybe like $300. Because you could buy a lot of shit for $1,000. You could buy Jordans, you could buy Nikes, you could buy a bunch of shit that does not benefit you. I would do it less. I would say like $300, $250. I would do it less. But whatever your threshold is, when you get to that threshold, you want to run a thorough asset first filter. The first question is not, can I afford the payments? Because you clearly can. That's why you're about to buy this item. The question is, in fact, what is the asset that I can buy instead? For example, say you want a $40,000 car, but you could buy a reliable used car for $15,000. You could then invest the remaining $25,000. Like Steven, loves buying Nikes. He could, in fact, instead of buying Nikes, buy him a pair of durable dress shoes that will benefit him in his psychology career as he gets out of college. That would be more of an asset than the Nikes, because he's not going to wear Nikes on the job, even if he works for himself. He's going to ideally dress pants, dress shirt, probably have him like a lab coat on because he's going to be a doctor at that time, and he's going to have some dress shoes on. So buying a collection of sneakers that you're not going to wear to work is a waste of money, because you're still going to have to buy work shoes to go to work. Think about that. This is just an illustrative scenario, because as market returns are never guaranteed, it does force you to confront the true opportunity cost of your decisions. And that's all I ask you to do. If you want to buy 500 pairs of Nikes, buy 500 pairs of Nikes. Just evaluate the opportunity cost of the money that you are sacrificing for your desire to buy 500 pairs of Nikes. Even at $35 a piece, 500 pairs of Nikes is several $1,000s. Now, you are making a conscious choice between a depreciating liability today and a potentially appreciating asset tomorrow. That's one of the biggest signs in life that you have to put towards your future is, can I benefit from this in the future? Not, will it satisfy me today? These structural rules are the guardrails that keeps you on the path to victory. Now, the final layer of this ideology involves leveraging social accountability to reinforce your discipline. Yeah, I had a whole lot of stuff going on here. Now, this isn't about bragging about your net worth. It's the exact opposite of it. This leads us to our final law. What is measured and spoken improves. I know that didn't make any sense. What is measured and spoken improves. For decades, many people have money that has been seen as a taboo topic. But a new trend is emerging that aligns perfectly with our ideology, which is called loud budgeting. Loud budgeting, and I've talked about this on the show quite a few times when we start talking about who pays on the first date, is a concept that gained traction on social media. It is about being open about your financial goals and any limitations that interferes with your financial goals. It's not about shame. It's about empowerment. It's about normalizing money conversations to dismantle the peer pressure that leads to bad decisions. It means saying to a friend that I'd love to go, but that is not in my budget this month. I'm hitting an aggressive savings goal. How about we do a potluck instead? As a popular sentiment from the loud budgeting trend puts it, it is not that I don't have enough, it is that I don't want to spend that amount of money on that activity. That is a statement of power and control. And this does two powerful things for you. First, it creates external accountability, because when you've told people that your goals are important to you, you're less likely to violate these goals. Second, it can inspire others to change their social dynamics. It also allows for you to reevaluate the people who value you, because if you have certain goals and they're going to try to talk you out of those goals to go and entertain them in the moment, that shows their lack of value in you. So let's say that you wanted to, let's say, Stephen, you wanted to go and buy that Benz you talked to me about, and that's, you really wanted to buy it. I'm not saying don't, I'm just saying it wouldn't be financially responsible to do. But let's say you really wanted to buy it. Now, what say your best friend who knows that you're trying to save to get this car? The car is on hold for you. You're guaranteed to get it as long as you get the money for it. Your friend wants to go somewhere. Let's say another AC/DC concert that's in addition to the one that you knew about that you didn't know about, and this guy wants you to go there. I know you said you were going to go to at least one, but your homeboy's like, hey, let's spend $2,000 to go to this other one. Come on, this is the last time they're on tour. Come on. You said that you wanted to have this car by the time the school semester starts. He's showing you that he values going to that concert more than he values you getting the things that you believe that you need in life. And that allows you to reevaluate the kind of friends that you have. Now, I understand, Stephen, you ultimately probably would have said, yeah, I'll go to the second concert, but you also, with the new knowledge that you have now, would probably say, nah, that's okay. I've already planned for the one that I'm going to. I don't need to pay extra money for the other one that you're talking about. But you can clearly join me for the one that I've already planned. Right? You give other people permission to be honest about the things that they want, but you also give them the ability to understand what you need. And you can even find an accountability partner to share your progress with. I feel like your accountability partner, because if you said you was going to save, every time you come through, I'm going to be like, where you at with your saving scenario? Like Joe Jack said that he was going to potentially open a stash app. I'm like, bro, I ain't seen your account show up yet. It's been over a month. When are you going to get started? You said you were setting us up for your kid. There are accounts for kids. When are you going to get started? It ain't about me. It's about you. When are you going to get started? A simple text telling a friend, and I actually did this to my buddy today. He's got a bank account that we're operating right now for one of the businesses that we have, and there's a monthly recurring fee that happens on the account. The monthly recurring fee is $15 a month. The account has $14.72 in it. The payment's going to happen next Friday. I hit him up today and I said, bro, you need to put about 50 cents in that account before Thursday so that the account is good on Friday. Right? And I'm telling him that today. So Monday or Tuesday, if not today or tomorrow, he should be able to put $1 into the account to make sure that that account has more than $15 in it by the time they take the money out of the account, so that that account stays positive. And he's like, oh yeah, and then next paycheck, I'll be able to put 40 bucks in it. As long as the account doesn't go negative, do what you got to do. All right, you can put $1 in there now, and then you can put $39 in it later when you get paid. But you need to put that 50 cents in there right now. Even if you got to go borrow from your mama, put the 50 cents in there right now so that it stays positive. Right? What a simple text message to your friend is like when you sending it to yourself as well. You know, pay future me my full 15% this month. This can be an incredibly powerful motivator. Matter of fact, when you do wire transfers, think about this. That statement could have been in your wire transfers, the information, paid back a debt, right? 15% interest on the debt. The debt is to yourself, but on your digital transactions, the memo of what this money was spent towards was paying back a debt. When you start using your bank statements and evaluating uh, uh, your spending habits, it's not going to be perceived by the person that's evaluating those transactions as investing. It's going to be perceived as exactly what the memo says, paying off a debt. Right? So it also can be a powerful motivator, but it also can allow other individuals that looks at your money to not think of that money as extra money that they can take from you. They will think of that money as money that is being paid towards a debt. Just like Donald Trump borrowed a bunch of money from himself and he has to pay himself back at 500% interest. He's paying himself back, but he's still paying back a debt. And by paying back a debt, that debt payment is a tax deduction. Now, turning your financial behavior into part of your social identity is going to be the final lock in the system. You are no longer just a person who is trying to save. You are a saver. You are an investor. It is who you are, and you state it openly and without apology. You know, people ask me, what do you do? I invest in all the ways to make, save, and invest money. I teach people different ways to make, save, and invest money. So not only do I teach, I also invest. Oh, I need to talk to you. No, you really don't. Because they only see the value in me because they want money out of what I got going on. It isn't because they value me. I understand that and I respect that, but I got to draw the line somewhere. Now, we've traveled a long way today from a simple phrase like pay yourself first. We have rebuilt it into a complete financial worldview. It started with the identity shift because you're not a saver, you're a debtor, repaying a sacred obligation to your future self. It's built on a philosophy of stealth wealth where your lifestyle serves your savings goals, not the other way around, right? You want to make sure that you benefit from your lifestyle, not just entertain yourself in a fleeting moment where you're now overwhelmed with stress because you spent too much money. It's going to be framed as self-care where your financial plan protects your future peace of mind. It is executed by an automated machine that removes your flawed willpower from the equation. It made resilient, thorough, shock-resistant planning, ensuring the system can be bent without breaking. It's protected by unbreakable commandments that eliminate catastrophic errors, and it reinforces through public accountability, turning private goals into a public commitment. What? I don't understand. Okay, so this is the unorthodox ideology behind paying yourself first. It is not just a tip. It is a fundamental re-engineering of your relationship with money, time, and yourself. It is a declaration of independence from a culture of mindless consumption and a commitment to a life of agency, resilience, and true freedom. So adopting this ideology, building the machine, living the principles, and one day, many years from now, a stranger you know better than anyone else will be looking back on these choices that you made today, not with regret, but with profound gratitude. With what we've got going on today, what is the biggest challenge that you face when it comes to saving? Is it the mindset, the system, or the social pressure? A lot of us have a little bit of mindset and a little bit of social pressure. And it's true, because we have the social mentality to want to buy certain things, and then we want to fit in with the group. And because we want to fit in with the group, we find ourselves in a position where we do things that allows us to be in the group. And that costs us more money than we need to. But let me know in the comments. Let's start the loud budgeting conversations right now on tonight's show. And if you're ready to continue building a life of financial control, you got to make sure, if you haven't done so already, to like and subscribe to the channel on both TikTok and on YouTube, and then double back and hit the notification button on the shows when we do go live, and see yourself on the membership, getting the extra behind the scenes information that you otherwise would not have seen. While this is common public knowledge, it is not all too common to the average individual person, and now you get to listen to it and put it into action and change your lives today. So that 3-hour discussion, I want to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, this information is not only to make you guys higher value men by raising your income, it is also designed to improve your decision-making skills. I tell ladies and gentlemen on a regular basis, ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, you all can make yourselves higher value individuals by merely finding the things in your life that are inside of your control that you don't like, and proactively put forth the effort to change that. Then navigate around the things in your life that are out of your control, so that you can improve the standard of living that you have. Then, ladies, I tell y'all to pay attention to your 20 and 30-year goals. Reverse engineer what you got to do to get there today, and start working on that today. Keep your eyes and ears open for the potential suitor that has the right personality characteristics, drive, ambition, dedication, motivation, admiration, and integrity to accomplish his goals, and see how his goals match with your goals. Because if you both have long-term satisfaction goals, not short-term gratification goals, then you will find yourselves being able to accomplish your goals together. Where I tell you guys on a regular basis that 2 people can get to $1 million faster than 1. But it requires you both to have similar financial values. Now, with that being said, I'm going to start off by saying I appreciate and thank you to Steven, Michael, FX Trader, OG Kicks, Aztec, Unc Andy, Joe Jack. I really appreciate you guys for showing up through the YouTube side of things. And thank you for everybody else for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night. Now,
higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not mounted on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.